The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? Scared to look at my soul. I've been afraid I would follow alone. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Running Points, courtesy of Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. If you're in the market for a new or slightly used automobile, you need to get yourself over to Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown, because the three things that you should always look for in a dealership: you need good salespeople, you need a good finance department, and you need a really good service department. And Greenwood Chevrolet has all three of them. So if you're looking for a new or slightly used car, Greenwood Chevrolet, Mahoning Avenue in Austintown, that is the place that you need to go. They are sponsoring Running Points Monday through Friday, noon to 3 on ysnlive.com. The MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline open for business, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. Plenty of high school basketball on the network tonight. Larry Scragg and I will be in Camel, as we will be broadcasting the Camel Crestview game tonight. The varsity game begins at 7 o'clock. The JV, and I always say this, it's somewhere around 7 o'clock. JV game starts at 5:30, so the varsity game is at the mercy of the JV game. If the JV game ends early, varsity game is going to start early. If the JV game goes long, varsity game is going to start a little after 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock is the somewhat educated guess of when the game starts, but in reality, it's going to depend on how fast or how slow the JV game goes. So somewhere around 7 o'clock, we will have basketball action from Camel. As the Crestview Rebels journey to Camel, Larry and I will have the action for you on ysnlive.com. Solid game last night for the YSU Penguins. Yesterday afternoon and early yesterday night in Beagley, as the Penguins, they were down at halftime, but the Penguins get the job done in the second half as they limited West Virginia University Tech to 23 points in the second half. They get the victory, 80-66. This was an NAIA school. And to give you an idea of how quick you have to adapt to change, on the drive back home from Binghamton on Sunday afternoon / Sunday evening, because it's a 6-hour drive from Binghamton, New York to Youngstown, Ohio. Don't I know it? I lived in Elmira, and it's about a 5-hour drive from Elmira. To add another hour, because it's about an hour from Elmira to Binghamton. Anyway, on the drive back, that's when this game yesterday became official. And in so many different ways, this was a blessing for Youngstown State. Because, well, let's be honest, our conference schedule is going to be very similar to what Youngstown State did Sunday and Monday. Our conference schedules are going to be back-to-back games. And you are going to have to adapt, and you're going to have to change, and you're going to have to do an awful lot of things that you normally wouldn't do in a regular basketball season. And playing back-to-back is one of those things. And I think it was extremely important for Youngstown State to get everyone used to the concept of playing back-to-back games. YSU did that yesterday. Now, they struggled in the first half. And I mentioned when Rob and I were doing the game on terrestrial radio, I mentioned the fact that this was a basketball team that they were struggling a little bit. Struggling because they didn't know anything about this opponent. Struggling because the legs weren't quite there. And there needed to be some adjusting. And Coach Calhoun and his staff, they made the necessary adjustments, and the Penguins responded, and it was a solid victory. And I understand people are going to go, well, it's an NAIA school. Look, beggars can't be choosers at this point. Of course, you'd rather have a D1 program or someone of that caliber to come to YSU to play the Penguins in the back half of a back-to-back game. But the reality is they couldn't get one, so they found an NAIA school, which this team's pretty damn good. And they showed why they're one of the top teams in that conference. And they gave Youngstown State all they could handle. But YSU was true to the test, and they played an extremely solid second half defensively, and they get the job done. Okay, now it's on to Northern Kentucky. Knock on wood, hope and pray that it happens. Hope and pray that there's no COVID between now and Saturday. The Penguins will open up a back-to-back game against Northern Kentucky. As a matter of fact, of the first 10 games that the Penguins are going to play, and again, the conference format is 2 games in 2 days, back-to-back days. Unfortunately for the Penguins, 8 of the first 10 games are going to be played away from Beagley. So the Penguins are going to be tested right off the top. They are going to be tested, and they're going up against one of the elite programs in the Horizon League. And the good news is Sunday's game is going to be televised nationally on ESPNU. And you know that this team is starting to get some national exposure. The Horizon League is going to start getting some national exposure, and it's good. And hopefully the Penguins not only play well on Saturday, but hopefully they play well in front of a potential nationwide audience. Now, let's be honest. You're going up against the National Football League. How many people are going to be watching college basketball over the NFL? Who the hell knows? I'm sure that there are going to be some people from the area watching YSU. I mean, let's be honest. The Browns are going to be playing on Sunday night. And by the way, we'll get to the Browns in a little bit. Browns are going to be playing on Sunday night. The Steelers are going to be playing on Monday night. If you're a Youngstown State fan and you're a fan of the Browns or the Steelers, well, hell, you can watch the Penguins play because it's not going to be interfering with your two teams. Like I said, the Browns are playing Sunday night. Steelers are playing on Monday night. For the folks in the northeastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania corridor that happens to be Penguin fans, beautiful. You're not going to be interrupted with your football, especially if you're a Browns or a Steelers fan. And I think the Penguins will do well. I think the Penguins will find out just what they're made of when they take on the Norse on Saturday and Sunday. We'll hear from Rob Schmidt on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Should be entertaining when we get Schmitty on Thursday afternoon when we have our weekly conversation with him. He'll be on the air at 1 o'clock. Coming up at 1 o'clock, by the way, we will hear from Vindicator and Tribune Chronicle sports editor Doug Chapin. He'll be coming up on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline. He'll be calling in at 1 o'clock. We'll certainly talk some high school basketball. We'll talk YSU. And we'll talk, obviously, about what's going on up in Cleveland. The Indians are going to be changing the name of their franchise after 2021. Plenty of rumors flying around that, well, the lease is up after the 2022 season. Dolan is ass deep in debt, looking to pay off his partner who just bought the Kansas City Royals. He owes him $200 million. Lease is up. You got a brand new name of the franchise. Nashville is always in play. Montreal is always in play, looking for a Major League Baseball team. Are all the things in line? No. We just say no. I haven't heard anything. And honestly, to be honest with you, I don't think Major League Baseball would want Cleveland to lose the Indians or whatever the hell they're going to call their franchise, because this team's been around for over 100 years. They're an American League stable. I just don't think that the Major League Baseball would even consider a move out of Cleveland because Cleveland has been that stable. Now, the fan base, that's another story, and hopefully things will get a little bit better. And like I said yesterday, I honestly, if you look at this, and I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be in time to make sure that they keep Lindor or that the owner bets on the fact that he's going to make the right decision with the nickname, the logo, and they're going to make a pile of money with all the gear that's going to be sold based upon the popularity of the new name, the logo, the gear, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if he makes a bet on that and signs Lindor to a long-term deal. Probably not. It's probably going to be too late to save Lindor. Lindor's probably going to get traded at some point. And I'm resigned to that. And that's not just a Cleveland issue. That's a Major League Baseball issue. The fact of the matter is, even though I'm not completely on board with a salary cap, it would certainly help the smaller markets like Cleveland. Unfortunately, Major League Baseball Players Association would want no part of it. And if they try to, or if the owners and the commissioner try to jam it down their throat, you'll have a long, lengthy strike, and it's only going to hurt the game. Not that the last, 9 months hasn't hurt the game, especially with the way they handled minor league baseball, but I digress. So you got that going on, and then last night's game against Baltimore, which we can get into. And we'll certainly get into it more with Tribune Chronicle and Vindicator Sports editor Doug Chapin. Look, last night's game was fun. Last night's game was entertaining. And for Browns fans, it was a tough loss. Now, let me just stop right there for a second. I don't believe in good losses. I'm beyond that. But if there is such a thing, if you look at the improvement of this team, there is no question that this team has improved significantly from week one. No question about that. There's no two ways about that. This team has gotten a whole lot better since week number one. But I'm going to be curious about a couple of things. A loss like this over the last few years, I would actually say over the last 15, 16 years, a loss like this last night would immediately put the franchise in a sideways motion where that loss would trigger a series of losses to follow, and it would be an avalanche. Now, I don't think that the Browns are going to lose. I don't necessarily think that the Browns are going to go sideways, and I don't think that the Browns are going to lose to the Giants or the Jets. I think that, but I'm going to be really curious to see if this is in some way the same old Browns. I don't think the loss was same old Browns. I think that the Browns have improved dramatically, and I think that if the Browns had a decent defense, this would be an extremely dangerous team going into the postseason. But one of the final tests that I'm looking forward to seeing now is, how does this team respond to Sunday night? How does this team respond on Sunday night against a team in the New York Giants? And obviously, they're not a very good team, but the Giants are battling for an NFC Eastern Division crown. How are the Browns going to respond to this? How are the Browns going to respond to a heartbreaking loss to the Baltimore Ravens? In previous years, this loss sends the Browns sideways, and it sends them on a long losing streak. I want to see what kind of progress we're talking about here. Because if the Browns can beat the Giants, and I think they can, and I'm pretty sure the Browns can beat the Jets. They're winless. They're not very good. Okay, now we're looking at, 11-3? No, 11-4, I'm sorry. 11-4 going into the Steelers game. 11-4 going into the Steelers game, win, lose, draw. 11 wins should get you a playoff berth. It should. 10 might not get you a playoff berth this year because the AFC wild card is pretty stacked. So I'm going to be curious to see how these guys respond to this loss. Now, as far as the game goes, this isn't going to make any sense on the surface, but hear me out. I didn't like the play calling last night. I didn't like the play calling at all last night, as a matter of fact. Now, on the surface, I understand that this wouldn't make any sense. I mean, after all, the Browns, hell, they had 493 yards of total offense. So on the surface, you would look at this and go, how the hell can you say that, Ron? I mean, Baker threw for 343 yards, for God's sake. I mean, how could you possibly say that? Well, hear me out. Hear me out. There's no question. And you would have to be a homer to think that the Browns defense is anywhere close to acceptable. It isn't. The back seven's atrocious. You got a nice defensive line. The back seven's atrocious. It just is. With or without Ward, it's atrocious. And the object of beating a team like Baltimore, who has a multifaceted quarterback, and not necessarily a legit quarterback in terms of him throwing the ball down the field, although he was 11 of 17, and he did throw that pretty cool cut touchdown pass after getting an IV to Hollywood Brown, but neither here nor there. The object of all of this is to keep that offense off the field. And the way you go about that is to give a steady diet to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt because, well, after all, what Cleveland does have is a top three, and dare I say, the best running attack in the National Football League. Now, Chubb and Hunt combined had 23 carries, 115 yards. They were getting 5 yards a carry. Why in the world would you only give those guys 23 carries combined and have Baker throw the ball 47 times when you know damn well if you carry the football, time is coming off the clock? A lot more time comes off the clock based on the fact that not every pass is going to be completed. And in Baker's case, he had a great night last night. Other than the interception, and that stuff happens. He had a great night last night. He completed 2/3 of his passes. Actually, more than 2/3 of his passes, as it turns out. He had a great night last night. 343 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And he had, 19 incomplete passes. So 19 times, clock stopped. Where if you run the ball, clock doesn't stop. Unless, of course, the guy goes out of bounds. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that you're sucking up enough time of possession every time you have the ball for 2 reasons. Number 1, you want to get this Baltimore defense tired. And number 2, most importantly, you want to keep this offense off the field because your defense is god-awful. So while Cleveland scored 42 points, and ultimately you got over, damn close to 500 yards of total offense, it works. But you didn't really suck a lot of time off the clock, especially in that final drive. Cleveland had all 3 timeouts remaining, pretty much. They could have very easily just said, you know what, we're not going to give you any time, none, to do what you're going to plan on doing. We're going to suck all the time off of this clock because we're going to get it into the end zone anyway, and we'll tie the ball game. And look, some people wanted the Browns to go for 2. I don't necessarily agree with that. Tie the game up at 42, but you could have taken a lot more time off of that clock. You gave Baltimore way too much time. And when you combine way too much time with the fact that Cleveland's defense is garbage, other than the front four, you're inviting trouble. And unfortunately, that's exactly what the Ravens did. And then to top it all off, especially if you had action on this game last night, depending on where you were, if you picked Baltimore -3, you pretty much loved what happened last night. If you picked Cleveland +3, you basically wanted to tear your hair out and throw something through the TV after seeing that safety. Neither here nor there. I just think Cleveland could have slowed Baltimore's offense down a little bit more had they ran the ball a lot more. You'd have taken more time off the clock. You would have given Baltimore less time. Maybe it's a little picky on my part, but given the fact that they threw the ball 48 times, they only ran the ball 28 times, it's not that I don't trust Baker. Baker Mayfield's turning into a very good quarterback. He had a very good game last night. He's not a franchise quarterback yet. I do not say that. I don't believe that any quarterback is a franchise quarterback until they've won a playoff game. I don't even think Josh Allen's a franchise quarterback, and hopefully that changes this year. My definition of a franchise quarterback, and it's just my definition, my opinion. My definition of a franchise quarterback is a quarterback that not only leads your team to the playoffs, but he has to win at least one game. If you win one game in the postseason, okay, now I can work with you as a franchise quarterback. Baker needs to get this team into the playoffs to progress to the final stage. He hasn't done it quite yet. Now, they're on the cusp of it, but they're not there quite yet. They need to now finish the job. This was a stumbling block last night. Now they need to finish the job. Get past the Giants, get past the Jets, get your 11 wins. If you can beat Pittsburgh, great. If not, 11-5 should get you into the postseason, and then you're now ready for the final stage, which is when you win your team a playoff game, and now you're a franchise quarterback. But I'm going to tell you right now, I trust Chubb and Hunt a little bit more than I trust Baker. I just do. And the numbers prove it. Chubb and Hunt are combined elite. Baker's not elite. But this running game is elite. You got to do more of the running game and less of the passing game. That's where I think last night they had an opportunity to slow this Baltimore offense down by keeping that Baltimore defense on the field. And I didn't think the play calling was great last night. Where, like I said, you could have sucked an awful lot more time of possession keeping that offense off the field. You know, some people might call that nitpicking. I don't know. I thought it was a solid game last night, though. And the improvement is most definitely there. There's no two ways about it. There is so much improvement on this football team. And I think that some really good things are on the horizon for the Browns. And ultimately, if you spend most of next year's draft on the defensive side of the ball and get a little bit better in some areas, get more depth in some areas. The Browns made just an incredibly solid step forward. Even though they lost last night, the improvement is there. And that's a team that offensively, especially with a running attack, I wouldn't necessarily want to play Cleveland in the postseason. Although defensively, I think that any team would be able to drop 30-plus on that defense because it's not very good, especially the back seven. The back seven's horrendous. But there's progress. There is a tremendous amount of progress. But I would say to the Browns Nation, to the fan base, this is not a finished product. This is just progression. And last night was just a roadblock. What I think is going to be interesting is how this team responds to the roadblock. if they lay an egg on Sunday night against the New York Giants and fall flat on their face, then I think a lot of people, not only the fan base, but a lot of people in the organization need to worry. They need to be concerned, because that would be the same old, same old. But if this team responds to playing a solid game against the Giants and they cruise to a victory in the Meadowlands, then I think that that's yet another step in the right direction for an organization that is close, that is very close to being a top 4 type team in the AFC. The offense is almost there. It's damn close. That's a solid offense. That's a solid offense. But the defense is, the front 4 is nice, but the back 7, oof, not good. All right, 330-886-0813, MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Open for business with you till 3 o'clock. And I mentioned coming up at 1 o'clock, we will hear from Doug Chapin, Vindicator and Tribune Chronicle beat reporter. Jesus, Ron. Tribune Chronicle and Vindicator Sports editor, Doug Chapin, giving me a call on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll most assuredly talk high school basketball. We will certainly talk YSU getting a victory over West Virginia University Technical College yesterday. That game was scheduled literally at the last moment. I get a call from Rob Schmidt yesterday. Not yesterday. I get a call from him Sunday night about 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere in that vicinity, and saying, "Hey, we're going to be playing a game tomorrow afternoon." Oh, okay. And like I said, I think it was a stroke of genius to whoever got WVU Tech on the schedule, because this is a very good preview of how this conference is going to be, because league conference games are going to be in the month of December. They're going to be played on Saturday and Sunday. Now, in the month of January, from what I understand, the league conference games are going to be played on Friday and Saturday. I'll have to get some. We'll definitely have to get some verification from Rob. But back-to-back games, and like I said earlier, I think that scheduling West Virginia University Technical College, WVU Tech, NAIA school out of Beckley, West Virginia, I think this was a solid move for the Penguins, because it now has given the team, okay, this is what we're going to be facing during our league schedule starting this weekend. You're going to be playing 2 games back-to-back, and this is it. This is what we're going to do. Now, there are no games, non-conference games, during the conference schedule. They're just going to play 2 games in 2 nights, and then you get ready for the next team. And you'll be playing 2 games in 2 nights against the next team. So it's 2 nights a week, Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday, whichever the schedule dictates, and there you go. And by playing West Virginia University Technical College yesterday, that was a back-to-backer. Penguins played Binghamton on Sunday. They played WVU Tech yesterday. 2-0. A couple of solid performances, especially in the second half. First half, not so much. This team is, and we're only 3 games in, this team is a very interesting second half team, a much better second half team. And I'll be curious to see if this continues when we get into conference play. I'll be very curious to see if the trend of the Penguins playing much, much better basketball in the second half continues. I don't know if they can get away with not looking really good in the first half in the Horizon League, especially against the elite teams. And Northern Kentucky and Wright State are two elite programs in this league for the Horizon League. Nobody's elite in terms of anyone in this conference going up against the Power Five and competing night in, night out. Nobody's that elite. But for a mid-major, Northern Kentucky and Wright State are the two elite programs in the Horizon League. And YSU is going to get an opportunity real quick to see where they are in this league. And I look forward to the challenge when they face the Norse Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. This should be entertaining, to say the least. All right, 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline, open for business. We're going to take your phone calls. If you agree on what I said about the Browns, hit me up. If you don't agree, that's fine too. Hit me up. Just give me your opinion on this. And short story of my take on the Browns. There's no such thing as a moral victory. I don't believe in that stuff. But the Browns looked a whole lot better than they did in Week 1, and now I want to see another test that the Browns have. I want to see if they've graduated from what we have seen in the last 16 years, and that is a loss like this in previous years. Program has gone sideways, and it turns into a bunch of losses, an avalanche of losses. How does this team respond? And I think the organization is going to be on pins and needles Sunday night, looking to see how this organization responds. Look, if the Browns beat the Giants and that loss last night doesn't affect them, then it's another positive step in the right direction for the Browns. However, if the Browns lay an egg in the Meadowlands, I'll say it, it's the same old Browns. If they lose Sunday night, then I don't care what your record says. You're the same old Browns. You got to graduate from taking a loss like last night and having it linger. That's why Sunday's game is so incredibly, incredibly important for this organization. If you beat the Giants and you don't have any remnants, anything from last night's loss, then you've taken another gigantic step in the right direction. Otherwise, it's the same old Browns. All right, 330-886-0813. We're back in a bit. Stick around, more to come.
21 News.
Let's get right to our top story tonight.
More experienced reporters.
A new Wilmington restaurant.
GM Lordstown.
Telling more local stories.
We'll look at
Baby boy is recovering from a broken
around our valley.
Community in Niles.
We are here in Youngstown, right up.
Because you expect
It's important for everyone. No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County
Before
Court.
they become life threatening.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Attention football fans, order Coca's Pizza tailgate package for only $54.99. You'll receive 24 slices of our delicious cheese pizza, 20 jumbo wings, and 2 of our famous foot-long pepperoni rolls. Coca's Pizza, we serve it hot.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsuranceSolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Your Armstrong services are more important than ever. There are more and more connected devices in the home these days. To get the most out of your experience, you need a network that is always getting better. You deserve superior performance, and that's what Armstrong offers every day. Whether you're working from home, enjoying your favorite content together, or simply catching up while apart, count on Armstrong to keep you connected to what matters most.
Greenwood Chevrolet because
I was really interested in looking at the tracks.
Because I wanted my dream truck.
Because I've been going there for 20 years. I think whenever we go there, whatever car we're looking for, they have tremendous inventory.
If you're looking for people who care about you, Greenwood is the place to go.
You know, it's like family there. The girls know me in service. It's Miss Kim in the Tahoe.
I'm really happy that I went
to Greenwood Chevrolet.
Because they really went
the extra mile for me.
Now we're going the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
For heating, cooling, and indoor air quality, the Mahoning Valley trusts MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning, offering worry-free repair, service, and installation. Call MP Vivo today for a free estimate.
MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. We're your energy-efficient experts.
And welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Running Points, courtesy of Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. The MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline open for business, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. Smattering of games on the network tonight. First of all, we're going to have some swimming. Poland is going to be involved in a little swimming competition. We'll have that on the network beginning at 5 o'clock today. Boys basketball from Boardman High School tonight. Boardman will be taking on Lake. Camel is home to Crestview. Leetonia will be hosting Lisbon. South Range is home to Struthers, and Western Reserve will be home to Springfield. So 5 boys basketball games on the network tonight. All 5 of these games have a scheduled varsity start at 7 o'clock, which means that the JV games will begin at 5:30. And as we have said numerous times, the JV game and how fast or how slow the JV game is, that is going to determine the start time for the varsity game. Now, the estimated time is 7 o'clock for the varsity because the estimated time of a basketball game finishing, and then you've got the 20 minutes in between the JV and the varsity game for the varsity players to warm up, the starting lineup, the national anthem, yada, yada, yada. About 20 minutes there. So the estimated time, based on a 5:30 JV start, is 7 o'clock for a varsity game. And again, it could be a couple of minutes before, could be a couple of minutes after. All right, let's go to the phone lines real quick. Good afternoon. Welcome in. You're on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
What's up, Scotty?
Hey, first of all, congrats on the Bills' victory the other night. Pretty impressive.
It was fun to watch. I want to see what Pittsburgh does when they're healthy, and you know, Dupree hasn't been he hasn't lived up to the billing as far as what he's done. But I think Dupree's absence really hurt the Steelers, and he's obviously gone for the rest of the year. But I want to see what this team does when they're healthy, because and Buffalo wasn't exactly they weren't exactly the picture of health either. But I'd love to see what this team is capable of doing when they're healthy. And you know, I knew Buffalo could win this game, being that it was third game in 12 days for the Steelers. But I want to see what this team does when they're completely healthy.
Yeah, we're really banged up at inside linebacker too. We lost Spillane. Vince Williams was on the COVID list, but you know, Stephon Diggs. We didn't really have the answer with Hayden going down, but yeah. Definitely congrats on that win.
Well, here's the difference between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And your back seven was not very good on Sunday, but here's the difference. Your back seven wasn't very good because your back seven was banged up and hurt, because when healthy, that back seven is pretty damn good. So when you guys get healthy, other than Dupree, that defense will be in good shape. And you'll find someone to fill in for Dupree, and everything will be okay. I mean, the Steelers are going to be a solid team going into the playoffs. I don't buy into all of this. Well, they're hurting or whatever. Do I think that they're going to be in the AFC Championship game? Probably not. But I think they're going to be a fun team to watch in the postseason.
Well, they've got some major offensive issues.
Yeah.
The offensive line, from what I saw, probably out of the last 4 games, the offensive line is struggling as far as any type of run game. They're not making any push. We couldn't even convert a 1-yard rushing touchdown from the 1-yard line.
Yeah,
that's not typical Steeler football. The passing game's gone to more of a short, sling it quick, so Ben doesn't take the hits and stuff. But that's my concern's more where we are offensively. I think we compete. We've got Cincinnati coming Monday night with some rest here. But, the Steelers played 3 games in 12 days. So
yeah.
I think that had a little bit to do with it. But
I think it had a lot to do with it.
I agree with you with the Browns. The Browns give up a lot of points, so they got some defensive issues with their running game. That makes Baker more effective, especially in the play action, and it kind of takes him. I don't want to say he's a manager of the game. I don't think that's the right description to put on him or the right tag. But I'm looking at the AFC right now, and based on like the last 5 weeks, it's going to be an interesting setup because this year, remember, they added one more playoff spot.
Yes.
So only the first, your first seed's the only one going to get a bye, and I don't see anybody hindering Kansas City with that title.
No, I think Kansas City is pretty much the number 1 seed now.
But I'll tell you, the race, a team, and I watched this game, the Dolphins played the Chiefs very well defensively, I thought. They had a couple chances to kind of sway that game. But you're looking at a Dolphins team, so points against, meaning points that they give up. The Dolphins are sitting at 245 with the Steelers sitting at 237. I'm kind of interested to see these last couple weeks, kind of if Miami kind of wins out, which is kind of a stretch, I know. That shakes things up with the Browns sitting at 9-4, the Dolphins sitting at 8-5, right?
Yeah.
And then another team I think's on a peak is the Colts. The Colts, great offensive line, I think. Now I think they're going to go how possibly Phil Rivers takes them. Nice run game. And then you got T.Y. Hilton in the mix. So, these last, let me see, how many weeks we got left?
Well, you got 3 games left.
Yeah, 3 weeks to go. It's going to be interesting. The Titans, watching them play against the Ravens and that overtime run with Henry, the Ravens are sitting pretty well too, I think.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to be interested in, and I'm going to assume, and it's probably a bad thing to do, but I'm going to assume both Pittsburgh and Indianapolis win this week because Indianapolis is going to be home to Houston, and Pittsburgh is going to be playing Cincinnati. And frankly, I don't think either team stands much of a chance because both Pittsburgh and Indianapolis have a lot to play for, and I don't think they're going to have a hiccup. The game between these two teams in the 15th game of this season is going to say an awful lot for both franchises. If Pittsburgh loses to Indianapolis, now the Steelers have a lot to play for, assuming Buffalo doesn't stub their toe the next 2 weeks with Denver and New England. Because if Buffalo wins those next 2 games, now all of a sudden you got Buffalo at 12-3, you've got Pittsburgh at 12-3. The Bills are playing the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to have an awful lot to play for. And if the Steelers beat the Browns and the Dolphins beat the Bills, then the Steelers get the number 2 seed. The Bills would be possibly 3, maybe 4, depending on where Tennessee is and all of that stuff. This is shaping out to be a really, really cool finish. But that Steelers-Colts game, this is the game that I'm going to be real interested in, which has 1,000,001 different tentacles to it. It's going to determine the Browns' fate. It's going to determine the Steelers' fate. It's going to determine the Bills' fate. It's going to determine the Titans' fate. It's going to determine the Colts' fate. It'll determine the Dolphins' fate. And to a degree, it'll also determine the Ravens' fate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to shape up to be a pretty nice run, I think.
Yeah, this could be a fascinating finish, and I would not be a bit surprised if that Steelers-Colts game becomes a Sunday night affair.
Yeah, they'll probably flex that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all, because that game should not be a 1 o'clock game. At the very least, it should be a 4:15 nationally televised. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo in Pittsburgh to watch this game, because this game is going to be a whole lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of implications.
No question.
So it's going to be interesting. And then the Browns got to have the Giants, which we'll kind of see how they rebound. It's hard to. I don't know what your opinion on the Giants are.
They're playing for something.
They definitely are playing for something, but the inconsistencies. 1 week they look really well. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I got this in front of me. Is that game in New York?
It is in the Meadowlands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Giants are playing for something. They're 5-8. The Redskins. The Washington football team is 6-7. The Giants have the tiebreaker because they beat the Washington football team twice. So obviously the Giants they want to get back into a tie for first place, and Washington this week is going to be home to Seattle. So that's conceivably the Seahawks, who have an awful lot to play for. They're still the 5 seed, and they're trying to catch the Rams to win the West. They're going to have an awful lot to play for. So conceivably, the Giants could see Washington stumbling to the Seahawks, and now that game against the Browns means so much more because the Giants win, and they're back in first place, albeit the tiebreaker against Washington.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So this could be fun.
And now just looking at the NFC, there's tight races pretty much all around except for the NFC North, which I don't think anybody will touch the Packers there.
No, they they already won the division. They're 10-3. The Vikings are 4 games back, 3 games left. And the Packers right now have the top spot based on the tiebreaker against New Orleans. And as long as we don't go into a bubble in the postseason, with or without fans, Lambeau Field in January is a home field advantage for the Packers.
Yeah, and I think that could help Buffalo too.
Well, and again, if they don't go into a bubble, I've heard a lot of whispers that after the first playoff game, the top 4 teams would go into a bubble, and naturally they'd want to have a dome stadium, so they wouldn't have to play in the elements, which I think is BS, but whatever. If they go into a bubble, then home field advantage is gone, and you just have to essentially be the better team that particular day.
Yeah, and I'm also back to the AFC. I'm looking at the Chiefs. I think of right now, as of today, you guys, the Bills might be. Boy, I don't know. The Bills, I think, matches up with the Chiefs well.
Well, I think I really do. I think a lot of people are going to look at the game that Buffalo played against Kansas City, and they're going to say, well, not necessarily, because Kansas City they were able to beat them 26-17. A lot of variables with that, and there are no excuses. Trust me, the 2 losses that Buffalo had to Tennessee and Kansas City, no excuses, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the Bills couldn't prepare for Tennessee solely because, frankly, they didn't know who they were playing until the day before the Tennessee game. So they were preparing for two different teams. And when you do that, you're going to lose. So the preparation for the two different teams, and then they lose to the Titans in a way in which, it wasn't very good. And then that had the effect for the week after. It is what it is. I think Buffalo, when they're healthy, they can match up with anyone. I don't know if they're as good as Kansas City. That team is on a whole different level than anybody else in the NFL right now.
Yeah, but I think the Bills are the closest competition to even be able to match up with them.
It would be fun to watch.
Yeah, if especially if Allen gets hot, and if he's hot earlier, like in the first half hot, they could give the Chiefs a run. It'll be interesting to see really how this shapes out.
Scott, I would be really comfortable if Buffalo had Nick Chubb. If they had Cleveland's running attack, I would feel real comfortable about the Bills' chances. And let me even take this a step further. If Cleveland had Miami's defense, that would be the team to beat in all of football.
I agree. I agree with you. Sitting back here watching the Dolphins, Tua, he just doesn't turn the ball over.
Now he's impressing me in his rookie year, and I understand it's been an up and down year for a lot of things, but this Miami team is doing things, and they're going about things the right way, and this division is going to be a lot of fun because I know, as sure as I know my name, as sure as I know where I come from, New England is going to be heard from next year because look, everyone wants to poo-poo this year. And let's not forget the fact that Belichick lost 2/3 of his team because they didn't want to play based on COVID, and he lost a bunch of other guys to injuries. This New England team will be back and will be very dangerous next year. This is going to be a free-for-all next year in the AFC East.
Yeah, and you know what? Next year, AFC North.
It'll be a free-for-all.
Yeah, because the Browns are right on the cusp. They really are.
Yeah, they just got to draft a lot of defensive players and fill a lot of holes on that side of the ball. But yeah, and again, if they can come back and play a really solid game and beat the Giants on Sunday night, that hurdle of this bad loss that in previous years would have sent the franchise sideways and on a long losing streak, if they can beat the Giants, then that tells me that this franchise is ready to compete and ready to contend for a championship, as long as they improve their defense.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So to kind of wrap up here, because I know you got to get going here. I think what really to watch, if there's any fans listening out there, kind of watch the Dolphins, Ravens, Browns, Titans, and Colts. Watch some of those games and see how that plays out, because it's going to be a race to the finish for those last spots.
Yeah, there's a franchise amongst the 5 that are competing for a wild card, and actually amongst the 6 that are competing for 2 spots. The AFC South and the wild card are the 2 spots that are going to be open, and there's 6 teams. 2 teams vying for the AFC South crown, the Titans and the Colts, and 5 teams that are vying for the wild card spot: the Titans, the Browns, the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Ravens. And I'm going to throw the Raiders in there as well. There's going to be 2 teams that are going to be extremely disappointed when it's all said and done. Of the 6, there's going to be 2 teams extremely disappointed.
Yeah. So who do you, real quick, Ronnie, I just wanted to get your opinion on, in AFC, who do you think could play the spoiler teams in these last week's runs? Probably the Colts, right?
Well, honestly, as far as the non-playoff contenders go, I'm looking at Tennessee's schedule, and I'm looking at at Indianapolis' schedule. The Houston Texans are going to play a major role into who wins the South, because Houston has to play Tennessee and Indianapolis. So Houston's going to play a major role in that, and it'll play a role in terms of which of these teams goes and wins the South, and could the other team possibly get into the postseason. I think Cleveland, their game against the Giants is going to be exceptionally important. That's a playoff game on Sunday night. That is most definitely a playoff game. I think the Dolphins game against New England and against the Raiders, these next 2 weeks, those two games are going to determine whether or not the Dolphins are going to be at full bore, ready to go, and in playoff contention when they play the Bills in Orchard Park, the final game of the season. And I think the Ravens have the Jags this week. That should be a win. They got the Giants. I like the Browns. They got to play the Giants, and the Giants are going to have something to play for. So the Giants are going to play a major role into who gets a wild card, because they're going to have both the Browns and the Ravens. So the two teams, the Giants and the Texans, are going to play a major role as to who is going to win the South and who's going to wind up getting a wild card berth.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Ronnie, it was great talking to you, brother.
All right, same here, brother.
All right, man.
Be good. 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline, open for business. Hey, this could be a free-for-all. This is exciting. You got 3 games left in the regular season, and you got, like I said, the AFC South is still to be determined. You know, Tennessee and Indianapolis are both 9-4. And I, let me preface something by saying that the AFC East is still, it's still somewhat of a contest. I mean, if the Bills win on Saturday, the division is wrapped up. If they win on Saturday, the AFC East is wrapped up. But if Buffalo stubs their toe against Denver and Miami happens to win, okay, now the AFC East is back in play. So we'll see what happens there. But assuming that Buffalo does their job, the Titans, the Browns, the Colts, the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Raiders, 6 teams playing for 4 spots. 2 teams are going to be left out in the cold. And Sunday's game, if you're a Browns fan, Sunday night's game against the Jets or against the Giants, that's a playoff game. That's a playoff game, kids. Because if you don't beat the Giants, now you're 9-5, and now you got to win out in order to get 11 wins. Because 10 wins ain't getting you a playoff spot, and not in this conference. You're going to have to win 11 games to get into the postseason. So Sunday night's game against the Giants, that's a playoff game. Welcome to the postseason, because that's your preview of the postseason, Browns fans. Sunday night's game is a playoff game. You don't win Sunday night, and there's a pretty good chance now you got to win out and hope and pray that some other stuff happens. All right, we'll take a time out. On the other side, Vindicator and Tribune Chronicle sports editor Doug Chapin joins me on a Tuesday edition of Running Point, presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. Back in a bit.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Myers with Myers Family Insurance, your local Medicare and retirement resource. We're excited to have sports back. Whether you're on the field or cheering from the stands, sports unifies communities and brings hope for the future. We're all one team working together. At Myers Family Insurance, we know the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is October 15th through December 7th. Now's the time to make sure your plan continues to meet your needs for the upcoming year.
Call today.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Running Points presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. Pleased to be joined every Tuesday at this time on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline by the esteemed sports editor of the Tribune Chronicle as well as the Vindicator, the one and only Doug Chapin. Doug, how are you today, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. Okay, so without Trumbull County, high school basketball and the winter sports moves on as we are, we're going to have a pretty decent schedule on the network tonight in terms of high school basketball. As you look at the landscape of high school basketball as of right now, is there anyone sticking out to you one way or the other in terms of their performance?
I can't say we haven't had enough of there's not been a consistent enough number of games, or I don't know that anybody's played enough games to really tell how good they're going to be. So I'd say right now it's inconclusive.
And as far as are you surprised that we've been able to get as many games in as we have, based upon the fact that COVID is rearing its ugly head even more so now than in previous months?
I don't know. Surprised is the word. I guess it's just sort of my thinking is just what happens. If they can get them in, they can get them in. We got a whole county, a large chunk of our circulation area that isn't playing. So I'm not sure what I think about that, whether it's a surprise or not, whether they all should have followed Trumbull's example, or whether they should, like the rest of the areas trying to get games here and there with the acknowledgement that you're going to have games called off at the last minute. You're going to put games together at the last minute, or matchups together at the last minute, and it's going to be total chaos, and it's going to be difficult for your, practicing schedule and all that kind of stuff. And you're also, what's happening too is you're getting situations where a team who's played, 4 or 5 games at this point and has been practicing all along plays a team that, maybe was shut down for 10 days or 2 weeks or something like that and couldn't play at all. So you've got a big mismatch, which really doesn't help anybody.
No, and come tournament time, I get the feeling assuming that we get to the tournaments, and that's a large assumption, but assuming that we get to the tournaments, I think a lot of folks, especially when it comes to the seeding, they're not necessarily going to be looking at the scores because of your point exactly. Let's say that Springfield is playing Western Reserve, and Springfield has already played 5 games, and Western Reserve's only played 1 game. Well, obviously, you look at the final score, everyone's going to be like, well, Springfield, they beat Western Reserve by 20. You got to have a backstory in that. Because I would hope that if you're going to go about the whole thing of seeding and the whole thing of getting ready for the tournament, you better have a backstory of, okay, they beat this team by this amount of points, but this is the reason why they beat this team. They were playing their 5th game, the other team was playing their 1st game. I got to imagine that seeding in this culture right now, and it's I'm assuming that it's just going to remain the same, where you're going to be hit and miss all year long. It's going to be really difficult come tournament time to try to seed these teams together because you're going to have misleading information at best.
Sure. It's always a difficult thing anyway when you get when some of the districts might have teams from outside the area and the coaches voting aren't familiar with them. But I think for the most part, I think most of the coaches that vote for seeding, when they vote for seeding, they take it seriously. They consider things like what you just talked about, and other kinds of things like this team plays in this league and it's a really strong league, and they were the fourth best team in that league, and this team over here was the best team in their league, but their league isn't as good. I think the coaches take that into consideration already, and will continue to do so for the most part. And I don't know any other way that would be better for the seeding process the way it is right now in the Northeast Ohio sports.
Doug, let me ask you, and we're speaking with Doug Chapin, the Tribune Chronicle and Vindicator sports editor. There's a stark difference between the state neighboring us to the east and Ohio, where Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania has flat out shut down the entire scholastic scene, where there is no sports until after January the 4th. And Ohio Governor Mr. DeWine has said, well, we're going to leave it up to the superintendents of the schools. They know better than I do. Which approach, if you were the benevolent dictator, which approach would you rather see from a sports aspect? What Governor Wolf did, shutting everyone down and basically putting everyone in the same starting block, or what Governor DeWine has done, where there are going to be some teams that are going to have a significant start ahead of other teams?
I'm not sure. I think the ultimate test of which is correct, or the better choice, if there is one, is whether or not COVID numbers come down or go up, depending on which they're using, which choice they're using. From a sports standpoint, you would like to have everybody be equal and even at the start, and have a chance to have an equal chance to practice and to play. But then on the other side, you if you can, you should get a chance to play, and if you can't, you just do your best and try to get out there when you can. So I don't know that. And I guess from the sports standpoint, allowing them to play if they can is I would prefer that one. Although if I'm one of those teams that isn't allowed to play, or not necessarily. I don't want to say not allowed to play, but it's in their best interest not to play because the COVID in their particular area or the virus is the numbers are growing or whatever. So I don't hold with the theory that the superintendents and or the governor and or the county health board are the bad guys. They're doing what they think is necessary to slow this virus down. The bad guy is the virus. And, it's unfortunate in some situations that these kids aren't playing and those kids are. That's just the way it works. And it's something that hopefully, we'll never have to run into again in our lives.
Is it conceivable for the OHSAA to make a blanket decision that every team is now going to play X amount of games between now and the regular season, the end of the regular season, so everyone would have the same amount of games, where the OHSAA sits back and says, okay, obviously now because there are some schools that are not playing, i.e. Trumbull County, the entire county's not playing, so 22 is completely out of the question. So should the OHSAA sit back and say, okay, based upon the fact there are some counties in purple and some counties haven't actually played high school basketball or any of the winter sports, you now have X amount of games statewide that you can only play, and this is going to be the number, and you can't get past the number?
No, I think 22 would still be the number. If you can get a full season in, you can get a full season in. I don't think, that I don't see the reasoning behind that, because then you'd be making the teams that were playing early not play later. Who knows? Some of those counties may run into a situation where they have to shut down, for a time or whatever. So I don't think they would do that. I think they just leave it the same, and you play as many as you can get in before the regular season's over.
one thing, and I try to, I'm trying very hard to put a silver lining on this god-awful virus that we have, and one of the silver linings happened yesterday with Youngstown State. They wound up playing a NAIA school, West Virginia University Technical College, and they got them scheduled on a Monday. And I say this as a silver lining because for the first time, Youngstown State played a back-to-back schedule, and this is significant because the entire conference play is going to be back-to-back, where they're going to be playing, for example, Northern Kentucky Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. So whoever they play, they're going to be playing on back-to-back days. So for Youngstown State to get WVU Technical College to come to Beagley to play yesterday, that's a big-time achievement because you had an opportunity to play a back-to-back schedule prior to the conference play this weekend.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if that thinking even went into it. I think they just wanted another game, and that was the time they could get it. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. That will be significant, and it will be interesting to see how these play out because in the past the league scheduling has been you'll go down and the teams were paired. YSU's paired with Cleveland State, and they both go down on a Thursday night. YSU would play at Northern Kentucky, and Cleveland State would play at Wright State. And then on Saturday they'd flip. Cleveland State would be at Northern Kentucky, and YSU at Wright State, and so on and so forth throughout the league. So now you're playing against the same team in a similar situation, although it's back-to-back days. I don't know that that's going to be that big a factor since both teams are having to do it. But playing the same opponent, for the team that won the first game, the Saturday game, there's a chance of a letdown on Sunday. And then you'd expect that the team that lost the first game will be playing much harder the second game and, have more to play for, certainly. So obviously the big determining factors as the season goes on and in standings is how many sweeps you can get as opposed to splits, because I think splits will be very prevalent on a weekend, whether you're home, away, or whatever. But the key will be how many times you can sweep, especially at home. If you can sweep opponents at home, then you're going to set yourself up in good position for the seeding for a tournament, which may or may not ever be played.
Well, one of the things that is going to most definitely be important is the bench play. If you can get a 9 or 10 man rotation, and you stick with a 9 or 10 man rotation playing in the back-to-back environment of the Horizon League, I think the team that has the best bench is going to have the better chance at winning this league this year.
And you know what? We're also going to see some things, coaching decisions that are going to seem strange. If you're down on the first game of a road doubleheader, a back-to-back, you're down, say 12-15 with 12 minutes to go, and you might find a coach pull his starters or at least his key players and just sit them the rest of the way and just ride out the rest of the game with substitutes just to keep the stars fresh, the starters fresh for the next day. So we're going to see some different things that happen. That's just one thought that popped into my head there of ways to keep your team fresh, especially if your bench is suspect. You may just say, okay, we're not going to win this game. Let's rest everybody and for the rest of the way, and be ready to come back for the next day.
Yeah, it's an outstanding point. It's certainly going to be something that where coaches are going to make some very interesting decisions. That is definitely part of the mix.
They'll be coaching for the two games as they play, especially in the first game. They'll be thinking about the second game, as they go along, because they're back-to-back and against the same opponent.
Yeah, the white flag will be raised a lot earlier than what it would be raised in a normal. Okay, we're playing this team on Thursday, we're playing another team on Saturday. That white flag doesn't get raised until there's no chance that you have of winning. Well, that white flag will get raised a little bit a little bit sooner. If, say, you're down by 10 with 4 minutes to go in the game, and it's looking more and more apparent that you're not going to be able to win. Okay, live to fight another day. Let's get these guys out of the game and play for tomorrow.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. And I hope, the fear is that they're going to get, 2/3 of the games in, of the league games in, and not ever be able to finish the rest of them or something like that, or they finish the season and it happens again like last year where the tournament is canceled or whatever. It's we talk about the thing a lot of times from a fan standpoint, but for the kids playing both high school and college level, there's a lot of stress and worries on this whole thing. Are we going to get a chance to play? Will we get a chance to play? You look at those kids who just graduated last spring that didn't get their senior year of their of the spring sports season in, and how tough that was on them. And now this group is playing with uncertainty all the time. They went through the fall season, and there were some ups and downs as to whether they played or not, et cetera. And it's the same now with basketball and the winter sports. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's tough for these kids. And we often as fans just consider them. We don't think about the personality part of them. They're people. They have lives outside of sports, and they can suffer stress and worry and all that kind of stuff too over this whole thing.
No, not to mention the fact that they got to be worried and sick of the whole. Well, I might have COVID this particular game and not know it until a couple of days after. I mean, this is an environment where, boy, the mentally strong, whoever wins the whatever conference in anything in sports, whoever is mentally strong, whoever has the most mental strength, is going to ultimately win in this environment this year.
And they've got classes to worry about too. They're student athletes, not just athletes. So yeah, there's a lot. We sometimes overlook it, but what these kids are doing is pretty amazing.
Doug Chapin, our guest on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Okay, last night, tremendous Monday Night Football game, very exciting, perhaps the game of the year. Baltimore knocks off Cleveland 47-42. I thought the Browns' offense was solid. Baker threw for 343. However, I didn't particularly care for the play calling in that if you're going to try to get Baltimore's offense off the field, a healthy dose of Chubb and Hunt and not just 23 carries between the two of them, a healthy dose of Hunt and Chubb would have accomplished a couple of things. Number one, it would have worn down the defense, and number two, you wouldn't have seen very much of the Ravens' offense, which ultimately put up a ridiculous amount of points. And it's weird to say that because the Browns put up 42 points, but Lamar Jackson had plenty of opportunities to put up points because Cleveland was they were throwing the ball down the field and not taking an awful lot of time in scoring.
Well, I guess you do what you think you can do. You make the plays you think you can. I think the mindset was they had to outscore them because everybody knows and they've known from the start that the defense, even healthy, wasn't championship caliber this year. We talked about that before, where you can't take care of everything in an off season. They sort of addressed it with Grant Delpit at safety, but he's out for the year, and now they've lost and Greedy Williams never has played, and Ward. So the corner or the secondary had three people missing. So anyway, they've adjusted to that. My biggest I don't want to say problem. I don't know what the game plan was, and I don't know whether it was a faulty game plan or just the players not executing it. I have always been and will be until he shows me differently under the impression that you make Lamar Jackson beat you passing the ball instead of running. And to do that, you rush to his depth, however deep he is, 7 yards back from the line of scrimmage. You rush to there and then stop and contain. And, too many times the Browns' defensive ends went flying by, which left two, slower tackles to deal with containing Jackson. And he, of course, can, and I somebody mentioned something about a spy. You can't spy him. He's better than anybody else out there. And I don't think it's effective. But I think if you've got your four rushers and they form their own pocket and keep it that way, then, it doesn't present him with any holes to shoot through. So that was the one concern I had, that the defensive ends kept flying by, leaving, open lanes for Jackson to run. And then when he's in that, when they use the what's the play called where he puts in the runner's
the
belly
run pass option.
Yeah. When he does that, it's really, really tough because it's for the pro game. The defenders aren't thinking about that as much, reading keys like they do in college, and so it's really hard to stop. To your point, yes, more running game would have helped with clock management. I thought you were going to say they shouldn't have scored at the end there till when Hunt went in for the touchdown that ultimately tied it. He should have gone out of bounds at the one, and then they could have run some clock and then scored the touchdown. Well, you do that and you don't score the touchdown, then you're that's you're inviting real problems.
Oh, I agree with that. However, I agree with what you just said. However, they could have called a couple of running plays because they did have timeouts, and you could have sucked an awful lot more of that clock.
I don't know that they expected to move the ball down the field that quickly. They completed 3 passes is all it took, and I don't think they and they were all none of them. The first one was 20 yards down the middle, and you need that to get started and to establish your drive. Then you're right, they probably could have run a couple times or whatever, but the second pass wasn't that long, and the one to Hunt it was almost a swing pass kind of thing, and he just ran 15 yards. So there's a lot of things you can look back and say, we should have done this, we should have done that, when you end up losing. And it's funny, when you win, it's just kind of like you forget all that stuff. But it was what I liked about it as a Browns fan is Tennessee, to me, I wasn't. They didn't impress me as much as Baltimore. Baltimore, when they're healthy, is even with a defense that's suspect, was a positive in my mind.
I agree completely. Now let me see if you'll agree with this, because I have said, okay, in the last 16 years, last time the Browns went to the playoffs, 2003, 16, 17 years, a loss like this sends the organization sideways, and it leads to a chain of losses. So one of the final hurdles for this particular Browns team and this particular regime to get over is how they play on Sunday night against the Giants. And that game against the Giants is, in fact, a playoff game, because you're not getting into the postseason unless you win 11 games. So if the Browns lay an egg against the Giants, it tells me a couple of things. Number one, and I hate to say this, it'll be the same old Browns, because you responded the exact same way that you responded the last 16 or 17 years, with another loss coming off of a very tough loss the previous game. And number two, it's going to tell me that you might not be ready for postseason because, well, now you got to win out in order to get to those 11 wins. And that Pittsburgh game might still be a game where Pittsburgh plays its starters. That depends on what happens in their game against Indianapolis the week before.
I think I agree with that. They need to come out against the Giants and play well, because the Giants are capable of beating the Browns. The Browns don't play well. And you're right. And before last night, people were looking at the remaining schedule and saying, we're 9-3. If we go 2-2, we'll be 11-5, and with that should make the playoffs. and people would think, okay, we'll lose to the Ravens and to the Steelers and beat the Giants and the Jets. So it's one of the ones they do need to win, especially considering what happened last night. And that's I think, going to be the test of this new coaching staff. And I think they will do well at keeping the even keel. Stefanski's done that all year. Don't get too high with the wins, don't get too low with the losses. So we'll see how that plays out. You're right; it's a big one because I think they do need to get the 11. Although it's very possible that the third wild card spot will have 10 wins. But the division championship, I'm not worried about this year. Maybe another year when they're stronger or whatever. That would be a goal for me as a fan. To me, it's just getting in the playoffs and playing in a playoff game. I don't care whether they win or lose their first playoff game. They need experience to do it, and a win would really be great and help in the development as they go along too. But the Giants game is a big one. It's one they have to be ready for, and I think that this coaching staff will be able to take care of that and have the players ready to play.
Doug Chapin from the Tribune Chronicle and the Vindicator joining me every Monday at this time, or every Tuesday at this time, on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Doug, before we let you go, Paul Dolan writes a letter to the Indians fans, which I don't even think it's plural, but that's neither here nor there. The Indians owner saying it's time for a franchise name change. It's going to come after the 2021 season. Talking about how it's time. Well, if it's time, why are we still calling ourselves the Cleveland Indians in 2021? Why can't they say the Cleveland Baseball Club? Like, take a page out of Washington's playbook if it's that, and I'm using air quotes, offensive. Number one. And number two, there's people that have connected the dots. I don't know if these dots should be connected, but the stadium lease is up after the 2022 season. The name is going to be changed in 2022. Is there a connection between what is going on and a possible exit of this franchise after the 2022 season when the lease is up?
That's getting into conspiracy theory there.
Well, I don't normally do that, but this one is interesting.
I can't think that would be a possibility. I think what he's doing is first let me say this. They did a very good job, I think, of once with the summer of the of upheaval, let's say, of racial tension and the things that were going on in the country, and then when the Washington team did what they did and dropped their name, which I suppose if you're going to rate these things was more offensive than just Indians. I think they did a good job of just saying we're going to consider what's going on and take a real long look at it. And so they shut up about it after that and didn't do anything. But in the background and behind the scenes, Dolan was talking to a lot of different people, and his in the letter and in the interview with the AP, he said it's a very good thing. He says the name, it was great, and we grew up with it, and it was something we did, most fans didn't think about it as being, when you say Cleveland Indians, you don't think of Native Americans and what they've gone through since white Europeans came to this continent, but they did a very good job of consulting everyone on both sides, and he even said something about he was surprised that there were there's a difference of opinion in people you'd think would be thinking the same way thought differently. So they made the process thorough. They've made the announcement now, and I think my first thought was he wants to give longtime Indians fans a year to get used to the idea, and it's sort of like a final season, before the player retires, and then they'll break out the new name and go from there. But he's giving the fans a chance to root one more year for a racist nicknamed team, but so and then they'll come up with it. I didn't even know the lease was up, so I wasn't thinking that way. But I don't think that's. I haven't heard of any cities out there that are clamoring to move or get a franchise in their city.
Well, I don't think that is the case, although Nashville and Montreal would love to have Major League Baseball. For Montreal, love to have it back in the city.
Yeah.
For Nashville, they'd love to have Major League Baseball, and that goes without saying, but I don't think that one connects with the other. However, it's pretty interesting that the lease is up at the end of the 2022 season. Not only the lease, the TV deal is also up at the end of the 2022 season. Now, having said that, I have said since yesterday, whatever decision they decide, if they hit a home run with the logo, with the colors, with the gear, the Indians organization could make a fortune based on the people that buy and purchase their gear. And between that and the TV deal, which was outdated 2 years after they signed it, between the gear and the TV deal, the Indians organization might be apt to spend a lot more money. So, with all of that being said, does Paul Dolan take the gamble of, I'm going to get a much better TV deal in 2022, and my gear is, I'm confident that we're going to have the right name, the right look, the right gear. Everyone's going to be attracted to it. Everyone's going to purchase the gear. I'm going to have money coming out my every orifice in my lifetime. Do I make the jump to sign Lindor right now to give the fans an olive branch and say, okay, the name is gone, Chief Wahoo is gone, but your franchise player is still here. Here's an olive branch. I'm betting on the success of my logo, the success of the gear that you people are going to buy, and I'm betting on the fact that I'm going to get a ridiculous amount of money based on the fact that the Indians have had a top 5 ratings amongst all the major league teams. Based on those two things, I'm going to make the gamble of signing Lindor to a long-term deal and, in effect, giving the fan base an olive branch to say, here's your franchise player. Everything should be good now.
Couple things. Another factor, too, of additional revenue could be the increased sales in the current gear. Anything with Indians on it could go, and or Chief Wahoo could go. I mean, they may sell like hotcakes this coming season.
Well played,
also.
Absolutely, and they do still have the trademark to Chief Wahoo.
So yeah, that's. I mean, there's still stuff out there you can buy. So yeah, I think that's another possibility for increased income. Now, two things about Lindor. Will he, even if they match anything anybody offers, I just get the feeling he's tired of being here. Not here necessarily, but with one organization all this time. And, it's always a kind of a neat thing to go out and see what else is out there and try something else. So I don't know. And whether or not they do that, make the offer even, that's a good question. I just based on history, I would say no. Most wealthy people, and not that I am one or really know any, but from what I've seen and read, etc., they're pretty stingy with their money. That's how they remain wealthy.
Well, now, hold on a second. I mean, Doug, let's be honest. We're in the media. We make a fortune. That's what I've been told. I don't know about you, but I've been told I make a fortune. I don't know what rock these people are under, but whatever.
Yeah, just like the teachers making all that money and having all that time off. But anyway, we regress. So personally, I do not think he would do that. I don't think Dolan will do that. I think he will retrench. I think they will be competitive. The problem with the clamor for a salary cap in baseball and the disparity between the big market teams and the small market teams. The problem with that is it seems like the Tampa Bay Rays and the Indians and the Oakland Athletics keep doing well, and everybody said, well, look at that. See, if you just do what they do, then you can have success too. Well, that's takes a lot of things have to fall right for one of those teams in the lower salary range to have a really good season, and it's it has to go right. Things have to go right for a extended period of time, 3 or 4 years sometimes. You got to make all the right picks. You got to trade for some minor leaguer who's in Class A and he suddenly blossoms into a superstar kind of thing. So I don't expect Olin to do that. It's an intriguing thought, but I think what they will do is I think this next season is going to be one of retrenching and just saying, okay, we've got some really good young pitchers. Let's ride them as much as we can this season, and think about a strategy, put together a strategy for approaching the following season without Lindor. So and part of that I think stems from the fact that Lindor may not, even if the Indians ante up, I don't think it's possible that Lindor will say, no, I'm still going to go look somewhere else.
And I've had a conversation with Tony Clark, and he seems to be a relatively sane person in terms of willing to deal with Commissioner Manfred and the owners. And if I were Tony Clark, I would approach the whole salary cap thing this way. I would sit back and go, if you guys want a salary cap, I'm going to agree to a salary floor where the owners have to pay minimum amounts in order to be on the floor. You don't have a ceiling. We'll agree to no ceiling. I mean, if you guys want a salary cap, we're going to sit back and say, you have to spend X amount of money. Here's the floor. We're not going to have a ceiling. We're just going to have a floor. So if you want everyone to be competitive, you got to spend at least $75 million. That's the bare minimum you have to spend. You don't have to have a ceiling. I'd much prefer a floor than a ceiling, to where if you have a floor, then you can get away with being a productive team like an Oakland, a Minnesota, an Oakland, and some of the other small market teams that have had tremendous success based upon their minor league organizations and based upon some of the other smart dealings that they've done. But if you have this minimum salary requirement, I think that the have-nots can still be in a really good position to take out the haves every now and then.
Yeah, I like that idea. It prevents the total tanking situation. If you've got to spend a certain amount. Now, what will happen is an undeserving player or two or four will get a big contract from one of those teams that low market teams just to get up over the so they can get up over the floor, and that'll everybody will yap about that a little bit. That why are you paying that guy so much? Well, we had to so we could get up to our payroll high enough. That kind of thing could possibly happen, but in the end, what that will also benefit is the longtime major leaguer guy, 7-8 years into the league, who's a quality bench player, role player, helps maybe a platoon player. Those are the guys that are getting left out right now. When a team tanks, they just go with they bring up a bunch of untested minor leaguers or guys that aren't going to cost them much, and these other guys are getting left out and either sent down or released, and that would help protect those players who deserve it because they've put in a lot of time and they're valuable additions. There are a lot of those guys out there that 6, 7, 8 year veterans who are pretty decent, but not a star. There are a lot of those guys out there that teams would love to have, but because of the salary situation, they're not going to pay that much, and they'd rather get somebody who's going to just cost $1 million or whatever. So yeah, I like that idea. It forces these small market teams to at least try to be competitive, and not just say we're going to tank. And the thing about tanking is it's kind of weird because the MLB draft is not like the NFL draft where you're going to get instant impact, or the NBA draft. It takes a while for the draft to show fruition. So I'm not sure what the thinking is there. Another thing that might work is the professional soccer worldwide idea of relegation, where they the thing is, they'll have what you would have to do is you would have to consider the AAA teams, their franchises, as Major League also, or something along those lines, so that if you're finishing the bottom 3 or bottom 2, you go down to the minors and they bring up a minor league team to replace you. That would spur some activity, I think, or there would be some reason to win at the bottom for those teams.
Don't give Manfred those kind of ideas. I mean, let's be honest, Doug. AAA stadiums are not major league stadiums, but it's an interesting thought. Let's say Detroit is in the bottom 2. Do you give the AAA team to Toledo a major league baseball team?
No, you don't. Not theirs. There would be the way it works over there is that the AAA franchises are independent of. Of their teams. They're not related to them. They're just another major league / minor league team. They can go up or down. So that's the thing is you can't. They have in English soccer. They have like 82 teams, 82 franchises that are considered in the association, and then the top 24 are Premier League. The next 20 or whatever they're calling it now. And they flip-flop that way. So, no, it would be a total revamp of the way it's set up in baseball now.
We've already been revamped enough.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, always a pleasure, sir, and we look forward to catching up with you next week, brother.
All right, take care.
Appreciate it. Doug Chapin from the Tribune Chronicle and the Vindicator. He's the sports editor. He checks in every Tuesday on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Let me just say this about the floor for in terms of salary cap for a floor. Here's another thing that people could think of, and I'll use Lindor as an example because, let's say Lindor is under contract and he's getting paid $25-30 million a year, and there's a team that is not quite on the minimum aspect of the floor of, let's say, $80 million is the floor. And a team has a payroll of $50 million, and they got to find someone that's making $25 or $30 million. You could conceivably make that deal, and in the process, the team that's giving up the guy that's worth $30 million a year to fortify the minimum salary for the other team, the team that's trading the superstar could revamp their minor league system with all the guys coming back in this particular deal, or major league players that are underneath the 6-year threshold. And I mean, it's a fascinating argument for Major League Baseball, the Players Association, and for the owners to make. If I were in Tony Clark's shoes, I would not want a ceiling salary cap, because that would certainly not be something in the best interests of the Players Association. However, a floor cap would be in the best interest not only of baseball in general for keeping everyone pretty much where they're not tanking, but it would also drastically improve the salaries of the players. I think it would be a great stroke of genius for the Players Association. The owners would nenever go for that. It's not in their best interest. Hence the reason why they're going to be a hell of a long stalemate after the 2021 season. I'm just going to say it. We're going to take a timeout, be back with more. It's a Tuesday edition of Running Point presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. Back in a bit.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Rain will come and go tomorrow. There'll be some dry intervals.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa. And I'm Kelsey Clem from K-Squared Marketing. Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships. We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team. Your goals, our game plan. Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
No matter what the weather, be prepared with a reliable, efficient Rude gas furnace or air conditioner from MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. Call your energy-efficient expert, MP Vivo, today for a free estimate.
Here at MP Vivo, we rely on Rude, and so should you.
Welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you. MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline open for business, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813 with you till 3 o'clock, at which time we'll have the Power Hour. And Power Hour is going to be from 3 until 4 o'clock this afternoon with DJ and the boys. Tonight, we got plenty of basketball, and amongst other things, on the network, we'll have some swimming via Poland. Poland will be in a swim meet with I'm not sure who they are going to be facing in this swim meet. That's going to be taking place at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We've got 5 boys basketball games on the network. Lake will be coming to Boardman. Boardman taking on Lake today. Larry Scragg and I will be broadcasting the game at Camel tonight between the Red Devils and the Crestview Rebels. That's a 7 o'clock start. Leetonia is hosting Lisbon in an EOAC matchup from Leetonia High School. That is a 7 o'clock start. South Range will be hosting Struthers in an NE8 boys basketball affair. That's a 7 o'clock start. That should be an interesting game and a solid test for John Cullen's kids as they take on a really, really good Struthers basketball team. That'll be an interesting test, to say the least. 7 o'clock start. And Western Reserve will be hosting Springfield. And again, another really good test for Coach Del Torio's kids as Springfield brings a very good product into Berlin Center to take on Western Reserve. And again, the 5 boys basketball games on the network tonight, all 5 of those games. The varsity game is set to begin at 7 o'clock, which means the JV games get underway at 5:30. Now, in a perfect world, and the world ain't perfect, but in a perfect world, it's a 7 o'clock start. However, the 7 o'clock start, you put an asterisk next to that because, well, if the JV game runs long, then you're talking about a start a little bit after 7. If the JV game is a quick bada bing, bada bang, bada boom type of game, not many fouls called, and the clock continues to roll and not many timeouts, then you're going to get a earlier than 7 o'clock start. So a lot of variables that will go along with what time the varsity games start. Somewhere around 7 o'clock tonight, Boardman will be hosting Lake. Campbell will be hosting Crestview. Leetonia hosting Lisbon. South Range playing home to Struthers. And Western Reserve will welcome Springfield. All of those games will be on the network tonight. And again, Larry Scragg and yours truly will be doing the Camel Crestview game as the Rebels look to even their record at 3 wins and 3 losses. All right. MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline open for business, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. About this time last year, we had a couple of people from BBC coming over to do a story on a former big leaguer, not a big leaguer, a former, don't even want to say a doctor, more of a chiropractor. A guy who, early 20th century, was in the process of stretching out muscles for a couple of major league players. And word came out that this guy, Bone Crusher, God, I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, his reputation was such where now a handful of Major League Baseball players from both the American League and the National League, when they stopped in Cleveland or Pittsburgh, these players came to Youngstown, and this guy was manipulating them via a chiropractor, and they were this guy was working on them, and he was credited with saving the career of a number of players in Major League Baseball. Well, this guy he was born in England. He was born in Great Britain. So the BBC had an interesting documentary on this guy, and they came to the States. The BBC sent a couple of reporters to the States, and a couple of them were talking with me about this, and I had them on my show. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is Doug Chapin brought up delegation or relegation. And relegation was brought up during the course of our conversation to talk about the sports over across the pond and how soccer, or their version of football, had a relegated league. Could you imagine the National Football League expanding, let's say, to 48 teams? And you have the current 32 teams in the National Football League, and you have the 16 teams in the league below the National Football League. And every year, top two teams in this bottom tier replace the top two teams in the top tier. So the bottom two teams in the top tier, National Football League, would be relegated to the league below the NFL, would become NFL franchises for that particular year and for years to come, depending upon the fact whether or not they can get away from being in the bottom two. Can you imagine if we had something like that? Now, obviously, a lot of stuff, if you did this in baseball, I mean, first of all, minor league baseball has already been revamped to a way that, depending on who you talk to, it's not revamped in the best way, and you don't need another revamption. It couldn't work in baseball because you wouldn't be able to have a 40,000 or 30,000 seat ballpark. And I don't know if it would work in the NFL because let's say that Youngstown is a team that gets relegated, is a team in the bottom tier of this pipe dream idea. Let's say there's 16 teams that are going to be playing in a league below the National Football League. And every single year, the top two teams in this lower league gets to go into the NFL. And that replaces the bottom two teams in the NFL. The two teams in the bottom of the standings in the NFL are relegated to the bottom half of this league, a league that would be played in front of significantly fewer fans. Could you imagine, let's say, in previous years, the Cleveland Browns being relegated? Oh. So this entire organization is now going to be playing in the bottom tier of the league, and they're going to be playing against, 15 other teams that probably aren't as nearly as talented. Man, that would be entertaining. That would be interesting, and it would be entertaining. But the thought is, every year, the bottom two teams, okay, they'd spend 1 year in this bottom tier league, and they'd dominate the bottom tier league where they'd finish in the top two, and they'd be back in the NFL the next year. You would think. I mean, football's a lot different than soccer. You would think that would be the case. You'd spend 1 year in relegation, and then you would probably dominate the relegated league because it's not anywhere near as talented as the NFL. So you'd spend a year in the bottom part of the league, you'd dominate the bottom part of the league, and then you're back in the NFL the next year. Well, how embarrassing would it be to be relegated? Man, that would and how would that sit with your fan base? It would certainly, the regular season would certainly have a whole lot more meaning. And not only are you fighting for a playoff spot, you're also fighting so your franchise doesn't get relegated to the bottom part of the league. To the second part, the bottom part, the part nobody really cares about, unless, of course, you're in one of these 16 communities where they will see second-rate football. It's an interesting concept. All right, 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline, open for business. All right, if you're a Browns fan, last night's loss, a tough loss. Look, I said this in the noon hour. I'll say it again. I think the improvement that we saw last night based upon from week one to last night, although this team has improved, leaps and bounds, they've improved. Now the final hurdle, or one of the final hurdles. One of the final hurdles is about to be seen on Sunday night. Browns are playing the Giants. Make no mistake about this, kids. This is a playoff game. Oh, it's not postseason yet. No, it's not postseason yet. But this is a playoff game. This is a playoff game because if the Browns don't win on Sunday, now you're looking at a 9-5 team. And now you're looking at the very real possibility that you're going to have to win the final two games. And the last game is against a team that pretty much owned you the first time around in the Steelers. And depending on how that game against Indianapolis shapes up and the week before the Steelers-Browns game, that Colts game the week before is going to determine whether or not the Steelers are still playing for the 2 seed or they have the 2 seed and now they're simply resting some folks. Right now, Buffalo's a game behind Pittsburgh. And obviously the Bills own the tiebreaker thanks to Sunday night's win by the Bills. Pittsburgh can't afford to do a hiccup. I mean, Buffalo's schedule, they're in Denver Saturday. Bills win, the division is theirs. But they're not going to stop playing hard because, well, the number 2 seed is still up for grabs. So as long as that 2 seed is up for grabs, you would expect the Bills to at least be favored in the game against Denver and the game against New England, even though it's in Foxborough. So let's assume for a second the Bills win both of their games. Now you're looking at 12-3. Even if the Steelers win both of their games and beat Indianapolis, if the Bills are 12-3 and the Steelers are 13-2 going into the Browns game, you still got to win this game, because if you don't and Buffalo beats Miami, then the Bills have the 2 seed, the Steelers have the 3 seed, and the Steelers they don't get home field, assuming, of course, we don't go into a bubble come divisional playoff time. This might all be moot if the NFL decides to go into a bubble after the first round of the playoffs. It might all be moot. But you'd certainly want the 2 seed instead of the 3 seed if they don't go into a bubble. Now, if they go into a bubble, it really doesn't matter because you're going to be playing in a neutral site, and honestly, it doesn't matter. You're not even going to have any fans. It just doesn't matter. But let's say that the NFL decides not to bubble anybody. Well, now it's going to matter. Well, now Steelers are 13-2. The Bills are 12-3. Steelers can't afford to take the day off. They're not going to rest any of their regulars. Hell no, they're not. They don't want to make another trip to Orchard Park in a perfect world, 2 versus 3, 1 versus 4, assuming the top three teams all win in their first round playoff game. They don't want to make a trip to Orchard Park. They'd rather have the Bills come to Pittsburgh. Assuming, again, that everyone does their job, 2 versus 3, 1 versus 4. They want that extra home game. No two ways about it. The Steelers want that extra home game. So there's no way in hell they're going to be resting their regulars. So if the Browns lose to the Giants on Sunday night, now the Browns have to beat the Jets, which here's the Sunday paper, and here are the Browns stepping over the Sunday paper. Yeah, they're going to win that game. Not a problem. Last game of the year, you're going to be playing the Steelers, and the Steelers aren't going to be resting anyone because they're going to want that second seed. So you kind of understand that Sunday's game against the Giants, it's important for 2 reasons. Number one, it's a playoff game because if you lose this game, now you got to win out in order to get 11 wins, and you're not getting into the postseason with 10 wins. I'm convinced that 10 wins will not get you a playoff spot. Now, I could be wrong, but 10 wins, I don't think it's going to get you a playoff spot. I think the 3 wildcard teams are all going to have 11 wins. I just do. I think all 3 of the wildcard teams are going to have 11 wins. And somebody's going to be pretty pissed off and it could happen where 4 teams finish with 11 wins and only 3 of them get a wildcard spot. Somebody's going to be mad as hell, and it could happen. I don't know if it will. It could happen. But the second reason why this game on Sunday night is so damn important for the Browns, in previous years, as I mentioned, since 2003, the last time they were in the playoffs, a loss like last night turns this organization sideways in previous years, where it leads to multiple losses. It leads to a catastrophe, a snowball effect, if you will, where one tiny snowflake turns into an avalanche. I made mention in baseball lingo, it's 2 outs and a pitcher gives up a walk or a hit. And all of a sudden, that walk or hit is the beginning of an avalanche, where a 2-out rally where the next 5 guys get on base. You let this insignificant 2-out knock or 2-out walk snowball. Well, the Browns in previous years have let in a loss like last night snowball. And one of the last hurdles this organization needs to make to prove that they're not the same old Browns is to come back from this loss and play and beat their next opponent. And the next opponent, they got something to play for. And here's the other thing. The Giants are going to know where they stand on Sunday night. Washington is playing Seattle. Giants are a game behind Washington for that NFC East division, which is probably the winner of this division may not even get to 8 games. It looks more and more like 8 games will win the division, but you may not even get to 8 wins. The Giants are going to know by the time they are ready to take the field, they're going to know where they stand. Because if Washington loses, look, the Giants are a game in back of Washington. If Washington loses, now the Giants know, hey, if we get a win, we're back in first place because we've already beaten this team twice. There's going to be a lot on the line. And this game is huge in a lot of different directions. But if you're a Browns fan, make no mistake about it, your playoff, it starts Sunday night. It might have even started last night, but it definitely starts Sunday night. Because if you can beat the Giants on Sunday night, you have now basically told everyone, okay, we're not the same old Browns. We did not let last night's loss affect us. We went in, took care of business. More importantly, now you beat the Jets, you get your 11th win. You're pretty much in the playoffs. You're pretty much in the playoffs. All right, 330-886-0813. MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline open for business. We'll take some phone calls and be back with more. It is a Tuesday edition of Running Point presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. Back in a bit.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions, reminding you that it is open enrollment for Medicare.
Now through December 7th, those who qualify can visit our local independent agency by calling us at 330-953-3722 or visiting us at wrsinsurancesolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Attention all football fans. If you can't see your team play, come and dine with us and watch it live at Boardman, Canfield, or Cortland. Or staying at home, we'll deliver right to your door. That's Coca's Pizza. We serve it hot.
2020 will be a season like we've never seen before, but 21 Sports and YSN will be there for every key moment. The plays, the players, and the stories that will headline this season. Delivered by 21 Sports and YSN.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is here, so it's all hands on deck to make sure your plans still meet your needs for 2020.
Call us today.
You may find yourself in some difficulty this winter. Don't get whacked by high heating bills. Call Michael at MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. Michael is a trusted friend who will be able to help you with many things, like getting a 95% high-efficiency furnace this winter from Rude. Michael relies on Rude, so should you. Call MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning for a free estimate, 330-259-0486, and take care of your heating and air situation.
I went to Greenwood Chevrolet because
I was really interested in looking at the tracks.
Because I wanted my dream truck.
Because I've been going there for 20 years.
I'm really happy that I went
to Greenwood Chevrolet.
Because they really went
the extra mile for me.
Now we're going the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Running Point presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. Let's get to the phone lines real quick. Tony, you're on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. What up, my brother?
Hey, Brian. Hey, I was just reading an article. Did you see Sports Illustrated pick the Browns to go to the Super Bowl?
This year?
No, I'm joking.
Don't jinx this organization like that, Tony. Come on now.
They jinxed them last year, didn't
Boy,
they?
you ain't lying. They did. Wow.
So, hey, I am so disappointed. I actually almost to the point of disgust because there's nothing more that I like to do than harass Browns fans. And I watched the game last night, and I realized there's so many guys on that team that I really like, and I like the head coach. Now, I really enjoy watching him as a head coach, and the offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, put his time in, and he is really a good OC. Was a great quarterback coach with the Packers. I don't know if you knew that.
No, he was
Aaron Rodgers.
He was also a really good quarterbacks coach in Buffalo too. He just didn't have a lot of talent to work with back then.
He's married to a Niles girl, too, so there's a connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but, I may actually, not this year because it's going to be too much fun to tweak him a little bit more, but I may kind of get a second team in the AFC this next year.
Listen, I make no bones about this. I am a Browns fan, and they are my very close second team, although, you probably shouldn't have two teams to root for in the NFL. Push comes to shove, I'm not going to be taking the Browns anytime soon over my beloved Bills, because I'm a Buffalo Bills fan through and through, but I do love watching this team play.
Yeah, well, it's fun to jump team to team a little bit. I grew up a Browns fan. Actually, a Dolphins fan because I had an uncle who told me, and I had respect from a sports fan, and I said, "Who are you pulling for today?" He said, "Any team that the Browns are playing." That was after they traded Paul Warfield, and this was a Warren guy. So once they traded Paul Warfield, I think a lot of Browns fans kind of were Warren fans were disappointed in him.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of hate toward Modell when he pulled the trigger and traded away Paul Warfield, especially when the rights to Mike Phipps, who never turned out to be a very good quarterback, I might add, those rights to Mike Phipps were in play. And what was it, in '72? The Browns went to Miami. That was the undefeated season. Browns went to Miami, and they were actually very competitive that day. It was actually the day after the Immaculate Reception. The day after, which was a Sunday afternoon, the Browns played in Miami. They were really competitive, and had it not been for Phipps throwing five interceptions, Browns might have beaten Miami in the divisional playoffs and ended the perfect season of the Dolphins.
Wow. I was a big Dolphins fan, but I didn't follow them that closely, I guess. But no, there's so many guys on the Browns that everybody wanted to hate, and you knew I was a big Myles Garrett fan from day one. You and I argued regularly back in the old days. You wanted
absolutely.
Jonathan Allen. You wanted Jonathan Allen. I wanted Myles Garrett. But and Jonathan Allen's a good player.
No, he's had a nice career in Washington. He really has, and I think he's one of the reasons why the Redskins. Oh God, there I go again. One of the reasons why the Washington Football Club is right now in first place in that god-awful division. He's having a good year.
Well, it's amazing that he is as high as he was drafted, that he's such a second fiddle to Chase Young. What a freak that kid is.
Oh, no two ways about that. I mean, yeah. Listen, and that's Jonathan Allen's career. He got reignited, if there was such a thing. But when Chase Young was drafted, all of the attention, all the accolades go his way. So now Jonathan Allen is playing the second banana, and he's playing that part exceptionally well, I might add.
You know who else is really great to love on the Browns? And this is another debate you and I always had, because you wanted some help for Myles Garrett. You wanted Chubb. You wanted Bradley Chubb, and we used to argue all the time about that's the wrong Chubb. I want that Nick Chubb out of Georgia.
Well,
because
you're right, and if you remember, I originally said, okay, if you want to make the defensive line really great, let's go Myles Garrett and Jonathan Allen, and I don't give a crap who you're picking first. Get both of these guys. But then when it became apparent they didn't want to go in that direction, I said, Nick Chubb, it would be, if you get him in the second round, that's a steal. And they got him in the second round, and it was a steal.
No, he was a first round steal. You got awful darn lucky as a Browns fan not to have him grabbed ahead of that, because one of the things we talked about regularly back then was he had the exact same running statistics that the kid out of Penn State had, the exact ones. And this kid was supposed to be a no-miss, and Barkley's a good player. But Chubb, what a decent human being, and he keeps his mouth shut. He doesn't do the majorette dance down the field when he scores a touchdown. What a class act. I got to love the kid.
No, I do. I really like this kid. And he's a steal. He was an absolute steal. The Browns getting him early in the second round. Just an absolute steal. And I honestly believe that he is one of those guys that can become a franchise type of player. I think it was last night they showed a statistic. Through his first 40 games, he is actually averaging more yards per carry through his first 40 games than any other running back in the history of the National Football League. And that includes, for my money, the greatest running back, and frankly, it's not even close. The greatest running back in the history of the National Football League, one James Brown, and I'm not talking, wow, the Godfather of Soul. I'm not talking about in-hat James Brown. I'm talking Jim Brown, the greatest running back of all time. Nick Chubb in 40 games, if you compare the two, averages more yards per carry than Jim Brown. That's amazing.
Speaking of great running backs, Jim Brown, 9 years, right? Did the guy out of Detroit, how many years did he have? 9 or 10?
I think he had 10.
These guys just said that's enough, and they left early.
Yeah, well, and, in Brown's case, he was ready to come back, but he was late filming The Dirty Dozen. He was out in Europe. They were filming The Dirty Dozen, and Modell kept saying, hey, if you don't come back, I'm going to start fining you $5, $10, $15, $20,000 a day. And Jim Brown said, look, I can't come back. I mean, I'm in the middle of doing this, doing this movie, and the production was late because the weather was god-awful. And then Modell finally just said, okay, look, crap or get off the pot. And Brown said, okay, crapping is not a bad option right now because I kind of like being an actor.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much.
No, it doesn't hurt as much. So I'll gladly do these roles, and Hollywood doesn't hurt as much, and I got a stunt double. So and I get to make time with Raquel Welch. Not a bad gig.
Woo. Yeah, there's not Jennifer Garner, but pretty nice.
Well, I mean, look, there's Jennifer Garner, and then there's any other woman on the planet. But Raquel Welch, back in the day, the gentlemen in their 70s, Raquel Welch was every bit Marilyn Monroe back in those days.
Yeah. Hey, let's give Van Pelt a lot of credit for the redevelopment of the rebooting of Baker Mayfield, and I'm not a Baker Mayfield, and I won't be. He's just kind of great. He's fingernails on a chalkboard to me. So, but I guess if you're a Browns fan, that's fine. But he's really booted that kid's career.
Listen, he had a hell of a game yesterday. I mean, okay, threw the interception, and the interception led to some points, mainly because the Browns' defense is awful. But mistakes happen. I mean, look, Josh Allen threw a pick and also had a fumble. So mistakes happen, but Baker Mayfield has grown up considerably. Now, I still, like you, I'm still not enamored with some of the juvenile things that he does on the field. But okay, I mean, in today's day and age, that stuff like that happens. It's whatever. I'm not a fan of it. I would just as soon rather you act like you've been there before. But there's no two-waying about this. Baker Mayfield has made a significant step forward in the 2020 campaign.
There's a difference to the celebrating after touchdowns is fun, and as Bills fans, they really do some fun stuff. The rocking Be Cole Beasley to sleep as a baby was hilarious.
Yeah, that was good. That was definitely good.
But that's celebrating with your teammates. Running down the field saying "Look at me" is a different situation.
Yeah, I mean it's his way of celebrating, but I just as soon run down the field and congratulate him and not theatrically run down the field like a drum major. I love Hollywood Higgins' celebration where he gets everyone involved and he's walking, he's doing the fashion catwalk where someone's taking pictures. That is hilarious. I mean that's a great getting everyone involved with the thing. But no, I'm with you. I'm as a Bills fan, I'm glad we got Josh Allen and you can argue, and I have a feeling that there will be plenty of arguments from a lot of folks before it's all said and done as to who the best quarterback is in the class of 2018. And I'll just say this right now. For everyone that's sitting back and saying, boy, Sam Darnold is dead and buried, wait until Sam Darnold, assuming, of course, the Jets complete the 0-16 run, wait and see where Sam Darnold winds up, because I have a sneaking suspicion if he winds up in the NFC with Chicago or San Francisco, his career will take a violent turn and trend upward in a significant way.
He is a California, and for his sake, And I love Shanahan. I think he's great at developing offenses and quarterbacks. I don't know if he has a history of that, but he's a great offensive mind. You put Sam Darnold in that offense with those receivers and those running backs and a decent offensive line, he's going to blossom.
Yeah, Sam Darnold can be a really good quarterback if you give him talent, and he hasn't seen much of that along the offensive line. He had somewhat talent in the running back position, although Le'Veon Bell is a step behind his prime, but still a pretty decent talent. But he didn't have much talent other than Anderson to throw to with the Jets. I mean, put him in a different city with better talent. I still think Darnold can be a really good.
I think the key is blocking.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's still getting hit a lot. And he'd have a lot more sacks if he just wasn't so damn strong.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he'd have so many. But the other thing I like about the Cleveland Browns, I now like their offensive line. You always had to like Bentonio, but they have a solid center, decent guy, keeps his mouth shut. That draft pick on the left tackle was good this year. And their addition on right guard was good this year. So,
and Wyatt
Baker
Teller.
Mayfield has some of the fewest sacks. You look at the stats; he has very few stats.
Yeah, and Wyatt Teller was a Buffalo Bill, and Buffalo got rid of him because they didn't see that he was ever going to blossom in Buffalo. And you can look back on that and say, man, what a mistake this was, because you didn't really get all that much for him, but. The change of scenery, that really sparked a change of Wyatt Teller, because he was never going to be a success in Buffalo. I think he became really comfortable in Buffalo and just felt, okay, I'm not going to be released by these guys. And when they traded him,
sometimes a change of scenery or a different offensive mindset helps a lot of these kids, like this Corbett kid that just could not make it in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he was in it was a clown car situation in Cleveland when he was there. But he's doing well for the Rams.
No, he is. And I think that the change of scenery is a wake-up. It's a wake-up where a professional athlete is going to tell you, if I get traded, part of them is going to say, okay, this might be my last stop, where if I'm not successful here, then I'm not going to be making the millions upon millions of dollars that I'm envisioning while being in this league. If I don't make it here, I may not ever get another opportunity. So that re-energizes them. And I would think that if Cleveland played Buffalo in the postseason, Wyatt Teller would want to play his best game, just to gently remind the Bills, you really screwed up. You might have done me a great favor by getting rid of me to re-energize my career, but in the end of the day, you really screwed up.
Who did they bring in to replace him?
Well, they got a 5th-round pick for him, and I don't know who they picked.
They went out on a free agent market, and they got that Winters kid from Jets or something.
Well, they got him. They got Feliciano too, so I'm not even really sure.
Oh, Feliciano's special too. Now that kid belongs in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now he was from where? He was from the Raiders.
I believe so, and then they picked up the kid from Oklahoma State earlier in the draft. Yeah. So look, the Bills are going to be in fine shape. It's just they're hurting along the offensive line. But it's Wyatt Teller, God bless him. He took the trade and took it upon himself to get better, and he's become a very good guard in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, since I said some nice things about the Browns, maybe I didn't tweak them. I got to tweak somebody. So I think they're a much better team than Pittsburgh, and I'm you know what? The Pittsburgh fans better watch out for this Browns team. They are really good.
Well, look, the division is pretty much a foregone conclusion that Pittsburgh's winning it. But I'll say this, and look, if Cleveland beats the Giants and they beat the Jets, they're 11-4. Buffalo takes care of business, beating Denver to win the division, and then they take out New England, they're 12-3. Cleveland's 11-4. And if Pittsburgh wins the next two games, they're 12-3. Well, you know as well as I do, Tony, that Pittsburgh is going to be playing their regulars because there is no way they give up the 2 seed, especially if the NFL decides we're not going to go into a bubble. Now, if they determine they're going to go into a bubble, the 2 seed really doesn't mean anything because you don't have home field advantage. You're going to be designated the home team, but it doesn't mean a damn thing because the stadium's going to be empty and you're really not playing another team with home field advantage. You're just
but a
playing
bubble.
another team.
I think a bubble's a lot more difficult than football. When you have a minimum of 100 and probably 120 people, staff and all, supporting every team, that's a big commitment. Until you get down to maybe the conference championships and then the Super Bowl. Then you're down to 4 teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you do the divisional playoffs, you're at 4 teams in each conference. So you're basically looking at assistant coaches, head coach, coaches, 52-man roster, traveling party. You're probably looking at about 70-ish, maybe 75 per team.
I would think it's more than that, but even 70-ish. Those for easy numbers. Let's go 100 per.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at 400 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
I can't imagine you keeping. I can imagine keeping 12 basketball players and a couple coaches and trainers healthy in a bubble, but I don't know about that many.
I don't know if the NFL would want to do the bubble or have any interest in it. But if they don't do a bubble now, obviously, if Pittsburgh is 12-3, Buffalo's 12-3, well, Pittsburgh has to play this game. They're not going to rest anybody because if they lose to the Browns and Buffalo beats Miami, then Buffalo has the 2 seed and Buffalo has the home game in the divisional playoffs, assuming they win their first round game. And then Buffalo would deny Pittsburgh an opportunity to have a second home game. So obviously, that Pittsburgh-Cleveland game could very well have a lot up for grabs, even though it may not have the division up for grabs.
Yeah, the supposition and speculation, I think it's too far down the road to me. Win the one in front of you, I guess. And how do you like the Bills in Denver?
Well, I don't think the Bills lose another game this year. I mean, I think that I think they should be in good shape. Now, Denver's always tricky because it's the higher altitude and who knows what happens. And
no snow, 45 degrees, so you can have some nice weather there.
And let's be honest. I mean, if you need a Hail Mary, Josh Allen might be able to throw the ball from the 1-yard line to the end zone because it's the high altitude.
You know what I was thinking about today would be fun? It'd be nice to see our kicker out there trying to really see how far he can actually kick it.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, Bass may be able to go 65 or 70 yards with the high altitude. So I mean, it could mean a fascinating game. Look, it's now worked out to where had the Browns won, the Bills are in the playoffs regardless. All right, you know what? I don't really want that kind of a celebration. Give me the divisional title. And if the Bills beat Denver, they win the AFC East. I mean, that's the division is over with, and we move forward. And then you can concentrate on possibly getting the 2 seed. So I think that Buffalo, knowing that all they need to do to win the AFC East and bring home that divisional crown for the first time in a long time is to beat Denver, then I think you're going to see a fun type of atmosphere. And I think they ultimately get the job done, and hopefully the experience of winning a division doesn't cost them an opportunity when they try to get the 2 seed when they play New England the next week.
And with McDermott, you think they're allowed to celebrate too much?
I hope not. He strikes me. He strikes me as the kind of guy like Stefanski, and I'm glad you brought up Stefanski. I love this hire. I wasn't on board with it early on. I thought Mike McCarthy was the better fit. Obviously, that's not the case in any way, shape, or form.
Not obviously. I mean, Dallas is a weird place to fit in.
And not to mention the fact that they're playing with most of their offensive linemen out for a long period of time, and that kind of hurts. And we'll see what happens next year. But Stefanski is just a tremendous tremendous coach. Now, I thought that he should have ran the ball a little bit more than thrown the ball, but, again, I mean, McDermott's not perfect either. I mean, there's a couple of things that McDermott has done in the last couple of years that has frankly irritated the hell out of me too, but I really like the demeanor of both these guys, and they're both great human beings as well.
Now, Alex Van Pelt's not making the calls. Stefanski's making the offensive calls.
I think he's relegating it to Van Pelt, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Dable and McDermott have the same situation. If McDermott says, I don't want you doing that, then it's going to be McDermott's call.
Yeah, but the difference is Stefanski's an offensive mind. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator,
sure.
and McDermott's background is defense, so
of course
he's gonna I think have a lot less inclination to run over top of somebody. But he's also the guy who's just, he doesn't have to say it more than once. People hear him the first time. He seems like the kind of guy you hear him the first time, and that's enough. You don't have to repeat yourself with him.
Yeah, and the one thing that basically won me over, and this might sound something completely irrelevant, but when he was hired in Buffalo, the first thing that he did was he invited Jim Kelly, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, Cornelius Bennett, and Darryl Talley, and Bruce Smith. He invited these 6 guys to his place. And they didn't talk about any part of the current Buffalo Bills. He spent the evening talking with, what was it like for you guys to play in the era of the late 80s, early 90s? What was the city like when you guys were on top of the world and you're in the AFC? What was the atmosphere like? What was everything like? And he was taking notes. I'm like, okay.
How do we build a system? How do we build an environment? Yeah.
Yeah. It was a 5-hour breaking bread with some of the best that the Bills had ever seen in their lifetime, and a franchise that did more other than the 2 back-to-back AFL champions in the 60s. These guys were just royalty and still are royalty in Buffalo. So he's like asking these guys, okay, what did you guys do? What were some of the formula that you guys did? How did you guys mesh together? And he's just taking notes. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a guy that gets it. He's not talking about what I'm going to do for this team without going back in what these guys did under Marv Levy. How did these guys mesh, and how did these guys get everything? Because for those that are not Bills fans, this team did not mesh together very well in 87, 88, and 89. Those 3 years, they were called the Bickering Bills for a reason. That game that they lost in Cleveland, and the AFC title game that they lost, what was it, the year before or the year after? It was the year before, because they lost the Bengals in the AFC title game. Otherwise, they'd have played the 49ers in the Super Bowl, where Montana went 90-plus yards in 2.5 minutes. Those teams, they did not get along with each other the first couple of years, and then they finally realized, hey, we better get our stuff together, otherwise we're never going to be able to.
What was the genesis of that? What was the catalyst for that? Was it Levy?
Kelly was an arrogant, immature kid. Smith was an arrogant, immature kid. Thomas was an arrogant, immature kid. Reed was an arrogant, immature kid. Talley and Bennett were immature, arrogant kids. And Levy was trying to pull his hair out, trying to get these guys all together. And finally, after the Cincinnati game, he said that's it. I've had enough of you guys. You get on the same page, or I'm going to start telling Ralph Wilson to get rid of some of you guys. Get on the same page. Well, the game against Cleveland, they were down big at halftime, and then that's when they went to the K-gun offense, got back into the game, came so close to winning the game, the drop pass by Ronnie Harmon. But losing that game, Marv Levy and everyone came together and
said... Light bulb came on, huh?
Yeah, light bulb came on and said, well, why the hell can't we run this for the whole 1990 season and the seasons thereafter? And that's where the K-gun offense came into effect. Yeah, it was. Yeah, those years, it was. you could have very easily seen 6 consecutive AFC championship teams had it not been for their arrogance and immaturity. And then these kids grew up, and then you saw the 4-year run. Now, unfortunately, it'll never be remembered completely by the rest of the rest of the NFL. Somewhere in a third world country, the Bills are a dynasty because the T-shirts go to the kids in a third world country. Somewhere in Africa or some third world country, they think the Buffalo Bills are the greatest thing since sliced bread because they're the Super Bowl champs 4 years
Somewhere in the
row.
Appalachians, maybe, huh?
Yeah, well, they're there too, maybe.
Okay, my friend. Again, Stefanski, I really like the guy.
I do too. He's a good guy and a fun team to watch. That's for sure. And we'll know a little bit more about the organization. I mean, if they can beat the Giants on Sunday night, then you've cleared another hurdle. Because in previous years, losing a game like last night turned into an avalanche of losses.
Hey, one real quick question. Now, Stefanski's dad was a baseball executive, correct?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
I think he was, and I think the point, if that's true, I may be wrong, so just disregard it if it's true. I think he was a baseball executive, and my point is this. Being an executive and managing people and athletes and human beings, it doesn't stop from one sport to another. And that'll be my argument in the future for, some of the methodology that was used in baseball successfully, and maybe it has an application in football. But we'll do that. We'll argue that another time.
Well, I mean, look, you treat an athlete with respect. You treat an athlete the way you would want to be treated. And
you treat a human being with respect.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, exactly. You treat a human being with respect. You treat them the way they would want you to be treated, and I think it goes a long way. And we should probably, outside of sports, especially outside of sports, that would be a lesson that I think everyone should learn.
That's a good point. I like the word human being, too, because that's where you get a lot of problems with, like, an Odell Beckham probably. You stop treating him like a human being, and you start treating him extra human being. And that's when the problems start, too.
Well,
you treat him subhuman being or extra human being, that's when you have issues.
Well, and I mean, Tony, let's tie this to even into the levels in which we're known for at YSN. I mean, we love dealing with high school athletes, and we want to give the high school athletes the publicity that they richly deserve, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, having said that, if a coach is treating a superstar high school athlete differently than he's treating the regular kids that are playing that sport, you see where I'm going with that. If it starts that early, now all of a sudden that kid's going to get well, I'm better than you. What is the word I'm looking for? The phrase I'm looking for? Where he's the entitlement of the aspect, where if a kid is treated extra special from a certain level, the longer that kid is treated differently than the other kids, the sense of entitlement is going to become that much more entrenched.
Well, you're not doing your kids any favor at any level, whether it be high school or college, to treat them extra special, because there's probably a bigger dog on the next block, and when you move over to the next block, you're going to have to. There'll be a comeuppance at some point.
Well, agreed. I mean, it's and I'll take it a step further. I mean, when you go from high school, and depending on how good you are, and how blessed you are, if you go from high school, let's say to D1, it doesn't matter if you go from a school the size of Fitch to a school the size of Leetonia, and there's a big difference between the two, obviously. But if you go from a high school where you're the guy or the gal, and you go to a Division I program where everybody that's being recruited is considered to be the guy or the gal in their high school, now you're basically going into an ocean full of those people. And you're no longer going to be treated the same way that you were treated in high school. And that's yet another reason why, and I just cannot stress this enough for all the coaches, you don't treat anybody any differently. If a person's a star, great. You're going to treat them the same way.
Let me throw out one example, and I think I'm starting to win you over on this guy, but let me throw out one example. a kid who came from a small school and nobody wanted him. Though he believed in himself. God bless his parents for instilling that however they did. I don't know if it was intrinsic or they instilled it.
Well, he grew up on a farm. He grew up on a farm. You got to have.
But you got Josh Allen, who nobody wanted.
Yeah.
Then nobody wanted him at junior college junior college. He put up big numbers when he got a chance at junior college, and nobody still wanted him. And by that time, he was 6'3", maybe 6'4". They still didn't want him.
Yeah.
And when he came out of Wyoming, you still had the haters. The kid has never been given anything, and he doesn't ask to be given anything right now because of it. And that's why he's such a great teammate to these people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Roethlisberger in him. In that Ben's like Josh Allen, Ben Roethlisberger was really not recruited all that much. I mean,
there was a different reason for Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, yeah, and it's a personal.
It's a problem I see a lot. He never started at quarterback in Lima until he was a senior, and you know why?
No, I really probably
the
never.
Quarterback or the coach's son was a quarterback.
Ah, there you go. Well,
and that's something. Every time I look at a team that's having programs, and I look down the roster and I see who the quarterback's name is, and it happens to match a head coach, and you wonder why they're struggling so mightily. When you treat people different, for whatever reason, that's all.
Agreed. No, listen, agreed, and that all goes back into the whole argument of entitlement. If you give the kids a special treatment in an early age, you've essentially welcomed these kids to have a sense of entitlement. And then when these kids grow up to be young men, and the young men and women have this sense of entitlement, then everyone moans and groans about their personality and says, well, why the hell does this person have a sense of entitlement? Well, actually, this person has a sense of entitlement because he was given that from day one when his or her talent was better than anybody else's.
Yeah, and a lot of those kids, like a Josh Allen, you know what? It's tough for recruiting a Chase Young or a Boza. That's an easy thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you're looking for that diamond in the rough, like a Josh Allen, that's a special ability to realize, wait a minute, this kid's not growing yet. I mean, he doesn't even have peach fuzz on his face. Who is this kid? And he's a competitor. He's a pit bull. Let's take a chance on this kid. Those are the coaches I really have great respect for developing those kids.
This is a different sport, but I'll throw out two names. One that's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and the other one had a nice career, but really didn't. He's not going to go into Cooperstown anytime soon. And actually, he's doing pretty well as a coach. In 2002, I was in the Florida State League, and in the Florida State League, the Miami Marlins, or then the Florida Marlins, had a high A baseball team in Jupiter, where they once trained. I don't even know if they still do or not. I think they still do, in Jupiter. And there was an 18-year-old kid in Jupiter who played for the Hammerheads by the name of Miguel Cabrera. And it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. Miguel Cabrera, every time he stepped on the field as an 18-year-old kid, he was better than anything in the Florida State League. Even though the numbers weren't there per se, you could tell that this kid was destined for greatness, and you could tell that he was going to be an elite baseball player and that there was a chance that he was going to be a Hall of Fame type of player. Well, the Dodgers organization that year had a starting pitcher who later became a pretty good relief pitcher for a span of a few years with the Pirates organization, and who is now the AAA pitching coach, Joel Hanrahan. Joel Hanrahan was a pretty good starting pitcher. The problem is Hanrahan never developed a third pitch. And, okay, his fastball was tight, his slider was solid, but he didn't have a good changeup. And Kenny Howell, former big leaguer, approached Joel Hanrahan just before they called him up to Double-A Jacksonville, and he said, there's a pretty good chance the Dodger organization is going to try to convert you as a relief pitcher because you don't have that changeup that they're looking for. Don't say no, because that's going to give you the fastest opportunity to be in the big leagues. And to Joel Hanrahan's credit, he sat back and said, you know what, I'm not interested in limiting my skills. If I get to the big leagues as a closer instead of a starter, I'll gladly take it. And to his credit, he lived up to that and had a nice career, not a Cooperstown career like Miggy, but a nice career as a closer. And Joel Hanrahan, in a lot of ways, was like Josh Allen, where you looked at him and said, okay, he's there, but he's lost in a bunch of different other players, and we really don't know what this guy could do. And then all of a sudden, you gave him an opportunity, and boom, he took off.
What about developing talent like a Tim Wakefield, who was, a first baseman? And somebody said, why don't you try this?
Yeah, and then he developed a knuckleball, and everyone was like, oh, Jesus. Here, just throw this pitch. And you can throw your pedestrian upper 80s fastball because you got great location, but throw this pitch more often than not, and we think you can succeed. Well, yeah, the rest is history. He turned a mediocre at best minor league type of career into a very serviceable, very underrated major league career as a pitcher.
To have a solid knuckleballer on your staff, boy, you have so much flexibility, don't you?
Well, it's just nowadays you wouldn't even be caught dead with one of those guys. You'd sit back and go, well, he doesn't bring enough to the table. Okay, I mean he doesn't have enough RPMs on his spin. His spin rate isn't there. Well, no shit, Sherlock. There's no spin rate on a knuckleball.
So, okay, well, I got to leave you with one thing. I don't even have anything smart ass on the tip of my tongue right now, but I want to get the Browns and Steelers fans fighting. So, I don't know. I'll think of something tomorrow, but I'm sure the Browns are a better team than the Steelers. I'm positive of that.
Oh boy, yeah, you're tweaking. All right, sir. I'll see you.
And the Steelers fans are just there. I thought the Browns fans were obnoxious. No, I'll see you later, buddy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's better not to do that. They're better not to do that. By the way, both teams are obnoxious as hell. That's neither here nor there. 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline, open for business. Hey, look, Buffalo's guilty as charged as well. There's a few Bills fans that, I think every fan base has that certain amount of people that are incorrigible in a not so good way. I think all organizations have that, but neither here nor there. All right, 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline, open for business. Tonight on the network, we got some basketball, 5 boys basketball games in part on the network. Boardman is hosting Lake. This will be a really good test for the Spartans. Lake is if I'm not mistaken, Lake is a D1 program, and historically Lake has been a pretty decent basketball program. So this will be a pretty nice test for Boardman. Not that they haven't been tested yet. Good God, they played Poland, and Ken Grisdale's club is always going to be a tough team to face because they lay down some solid defense. But Boardman will get tested tonight when they play Lake. That's a 7 o'clock start. Also starting at 7 o'clock tonight, Campbell is hosting Crestview in an MVAC gray tier game. Leetonia hosting Lisbon. That's an EOAC tilt. South Range will be playing Struthers in the NE8. And Western Reserve hosting Springfield. That is an MVAC Scarlet tier game. So 5 boys basketball games tonight on the network. Of course, everything is free, courtesy of the wonderful people at WRS Wealth. WRS Wealth has paid the bills, so we do not have a pay-per-view for any of the folks that wanted to watch their teams play. It's free of charge, and you can thank WRS Wealth for that. They flipped the bill, and it was a fantastic generosity by the good folks at WRS Wealth for doing that. So all of these games are free. All you need to do is go to ysnlive.com / put your team in there. So if you're a Crestview fan, it would be ysnlive.com/Crestview. And then about 7 o'clock, you should be able to see the game from Camel tonight as Camel takes on Crestview. Thank God the camera is on the floor and not on this, because nobody wants to see this but more than 3 hours Monday through Friday. I promise you that. That's the reason why I'm not married, kids, because ain't nobody want to see this ugly mug for 24/7. I'm just telling you. Just saying. All right, 330-886-0813. So all you need to do if you want to watch the Boardman Lake game tonight from Boardman, the Camel Crestview game from Camel, the Leetonia Lisbon game from Beartown, South Range and Struthers from South Range High School, Western Reserve and Springfield from Berlin Center. All you need to do is go to ysnlive.com/your team, not literally your team. It would be ysnlive.com/Boardman or ysnlive.com/Leetonia. Your favorite team. Put that in there along with ysnlive.com/drop your team in there, and you'll be able to see your team play. Kudos to Leetonia, wearing my gear loud and proud. Good luck to them tonight as they take on Lisbon. It should be an interesting game. Hopefully they have an answer for Mr. Brownfield and Mr. McCullough, because those two kids can light it up in a heartbeat. Hopefully Leetonia has an answer for them. All right, we'll take a timeout, be back with more. It is a Tuesday edition of Running Point, courtesy of Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austintown. We're back in a bit.
Baird Brothers remains your source for fine hardwood products. For the time being, we're open for customer pickup only on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. till noon. Place your order online at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers, for the place you love.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
The 4M Company, being an architect and construction manager for over 40 years, has had the opportunity to use many different electrical businesses for our projects. The depth, quality, and knowledge and attention to detail displayed by Dickey Electric makes them stand out above all the rest.
For state-of-the-art expertise and a timeless commitment to our customers, contact Joe Dickey Electric. We are everything electrical.
Armstrong Local Programming has always delivered an exclusive and unique perspective on the very best events your region offers. High school sports, community events, parades, all your favorite shows from Armstrong are now calling the Neighborhood Channel their home.
Watch Out and About, Locally Speaking, and many other great local shows right here on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Find out everything that the Neighborhood Channel has to offer at ArmstrongNeighborhood.com. Spirit, town pride, local communities. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Right now is a great time to get more for your trade-in at Tri-State Ford and drive home in a new or pre-owned vehicle. Choose from our great selection of new Ford models or pre-owned vehicles. Plus, get the Tri-State Ford Advantage, including a 10-year, 200,000-mile warranty and more. At Tri-State Ford, we'll pay you top dollar for your trade, but you don't have to purchase one of ours to sell us yours.
Customer focus, community driven. Tri-State Ford East Liverpool or visit tristateford.net.
And welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Running Points on ysnlive.com. Again, a reminder, tonight, 5 games along the network. Larry Scragg and I will be broadcasting the Crestview Camel game from Camel High School Gymnasium. 7 o'clock, give or take a few minutes in either direction. That'll be the start of tonight's game in Camel, as well as the other 4 games on the network. Lake is playing Poland. Western Reserve is hosting Springfield. Leetonia is hosting Lisbon. South Range is hosting Struthers. And Camel is hosting Crestview. All right, I end the show with a little educational stuff. And I like to, every once in a while, I like to let everyone know some stuff in a journey that I might be on. And as some people will know, about 2 months ago, I was diagnosed with skin cancer. And 2 Fridays ago, I had, 2 weeks ago this Friday, I was off. I had surgery at Southwoods. And a great job by Dr. Generalovic and everyone associated with this surgery. I had a malignant tumor taken out of my back, as it turns out. It was supposed to be skin cancer. Unfortunately, it was a little bit bigger and a little bit more complex. And because of that, they had to dig a little bit deeper. And I have some issues right now that I have a drain in my back and I have clamps in my back. Neither here nor there. Monday, yesterday, I was to have taken the clamps and the drain out of my back. And as it turns out, I'm not able to. Not able to for another 8 days. Next Wednesday, I will. The reason I'm bringing this up is, and I want to leave with everyone to understand this, it is so important to take care of yourself and to be very proactive when it comes to, if you see a bump or something that has suddenly appeared on your skin. It is so vitally important that you go to the doctor ASAP and don't wait. I'm learning this the hard way. About a year or so ago, I was told by my father that there was something on my back. And I didn't really do anything about it. I hemmed and hawed and really didn't through a lot of, this stuff happens, life happens, and you kind of forget about it. And I wasn't proactive. And I'm paying for it now. Now, I'm not going to pay for it with my life. The cancer was never spread, and they got it in time, thank God. But I'm paying for it now. And I hope and pray that those that might be going through the same situation, my advice is become proactive. If you see something that has come on your body, get to the doctors. Get to the doctors as quickly as possible. Don't sit on this. Because if you sit on it, the longer you sit on it, the deeper the problem. And believe me, you don't want to you don't want to experience what I'm experiencing now. It could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. And I'm blessed that it's not. Trust me when I tell you. I'm blessed that it's not. But this is my fault that I'm doing what I'm doing now. Had I taken care of it a year ago, I wouldn't be in this position. So the moment you see something, get yourself to the doctor. On that note, we'll see you do. Talk to you tomorrow, noon to 3, Wednesday edition of Running Points. Anthony will be in studio, and we'll have some fun. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk tonight from Camel if you're interested in listening and watching the Camel Crestview game. That'll do it. Talk to you tomorrow.